Hello. How's everyone doing? I hope everyone is having a great Thursday. I hope that your week is planning out the way that you want to. And I hope that y'all have a good weekend, right? Because I'm not going to see you this weekend. Oh, hey, Joanne Jenkins. Thank you so much for stopping by. I appreciate you. Let's see. Arshard, Sheik, hey, how are you doing? Thank you for stopping by. I appreciate you. So I know I told you guys the last one that I was going to be coming back with on Monday with a new one, but I do have a couple of hours to spare before I head on the road to do what I have to do. So I wanted to make sure that I come in with a couple of cases for you guys, and then I will see you on going forward on this Monday. But I do hope everybody's going doing well. I hope everybody is safe. I hope everybody is having a good Thursday. I really do. I really, really do. So, the one of the cases that I have for you guys is going to be interesting because a shout out to all the people who gave me all of the list of cases that they wanted me to review. I have that in the works, and you will definitely see them on Monday. I did do some research on the Marilyn Monroe. What's his name? I'm about to say Marilyn Mason case with the Rachel, because some new information came out on his case where the prosecutor added some more stuff to discovery. So I actually want to take that news article to add to what happened when it came down to Rachel. Then I do have the Amelia Bassoon case that I do have some information on. I'm still working on getting the docket, and then the Crits Wash case. So shout out to that. Shout out to that. Let's see. Thank you so much, Young Reyes. I appreciate you truly. Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing out. Hi, Sunny. How you doing? You live in Florida? Shout out to you. Shout out to you. Hey, Rock and Johnny. Shout out to you, sir. Appreciate it. Appreciate it. All right, so let's go on to the cases. So one of the cases I have to do is a JCS case. It's about like maybe a year or 2 years old. I think, or maybe I know. I think that it was reviewed a year or 2 years ago, but this case might be in the 2019, 2020. And it has to do with a predator realizing that he's about to go to prison for life, right? So we're going to review this and see how this plays out. Hi, Miss Jalen. How you doing? How you doing? Good to see you. Good to see you. Thank you for stopping by. All right, let me pull it up. Okay. All right, here we go.
When a young Mennonite woman was found dead in Arizona,
He hasn't?
He hasn't. Let's go.
the police were desperate to discover why someone would take her several hours away from her home in New Mexico, only to shoot her dead and dump her body.
Go, go, go.
Sheriff's office, get out of the car!
Get on the car.
Get off the car! Step out now!
Little did they know that as they worked with the Mennonite community to solve this terrible crime, authorities would end up discovering a decade's worth of unsolved crimes, all leading back to one depraved man.
Get your hands up! Step away from the car!
On February 22nd, 2020, Cynthia Schultz was pleasantly spending her morning collecting firewood for her camp at the Sunset Crater National Park, around 20 miles from Flagstaff, Arizona. While out, Cynthia spotted a woman lying face down in the dirt. Thinking something might be wrong, she called out to the woman. However, when she didn't respond, Cynthia had a horrifying revelation. The woman was dead. Cynthia alerted the authorities, and soon the area was swarmed with police, trying to get to the bottom of this tragedy.
He didn't move or nothing. He just came and looked, checked her, and
Okay.
rigid as a rigor mortis. She was real stiff, cold.
It was immediately clear to the detectives that this case was a homicide, as the victim had a gunshot wound to the head and her hands were bound together with duct tape. As they inspected the body closer, they noticed that the victim was wearing very modest and traditional clothes, which made them suspect she might be a Mennonite. Mennonites are a Christian denomination that practice a conservative lifestyle, dedicating themselves to their religion and only using technology that's strictly necessary, such as basic phones. Through forensic
Hey,
comparisons, the
Freezy. Good to
police were
see you,
able to
bro. Thank you
identify
for
the
stopping
mysterious
by.
victim as 27-year-old Sasha Kraus, a Mennonite woman who had gone missing from New Mexico on January 18th, over a month before she was discovered. While police may have finally been able to give their victim a name, it was now time to uncover her horrific story and find out the truth about how she ended up murdered in a national park nearly 300 miles from her home. Through interviews and investigation, the police were able to determine that Sasha was a Sunday school teacher who had worked and lived on the Lamp and Light compound, a Mennonite community in Farmington, New Mexico. On the night of her disappearance, Sasha was making a quick late-night stop by the Sunday school to finish an errand. When she failed to come home that night, Sasha's roommates alerted the community and the police were soon involved. Unfortunately, the case had hit a dead end fairly
Hi,
soon after
Cody. How you
beginning,
doing? Thank you
and
for
it
stopping
seemed
by,
like
and thank you
Sasha
for
had
the
simply
compliment.
vanished into thin air. However, not only did authorities now have Sasha's body, they were also able to recover her phone, a key piece of evidence that could likely point them in the direction of their killer. Through phone records, the police were able to deduce that Sasha hadn't just vanished, she'd been kidnapped. As her kidnapper drove her to Arizona, Sasha's phone could be seen pinging off of select phone towers before it died.
So what I want to just say is this is a rare situation, right? Normally those very secular religious communities, they tend to be away from, modern society, right? They don't operate the same way as everybody else in the states or in whatever country. They tend to stay to themselves. Their community is well known, everybody know each other in that community. The way how they operate is very, community based, right? And they only tend to literally go out as like when it's like maybe the husband or something like that. They go out and they do the bartering system, selling their stock and stuff like that, or their livestock. That's what they do. So it's weird that it seemed like this woman was targeted, right? And or she was kidnapped, because now it makes it personal. Now I'm starting to wonder, was it someone within that community that might have had intentions? Because it's not going to be like how it is if you was to live in the inner cities, right? Where you have a complete stranger walk across the street, saw you, and then attack you. This was way out there in the country. So let's see what happens. Let's see what happens. Let's see. We have a couple of people in here. Let's see. Hey, Drip, thank you so much for stopping by. I appreciate you. Hi, Gabby. How you doing? Thank you for stopping by. I appreciate you. Thank you for the compliment. I appreciate you. All right, let's see. Okay, I hear you. I hear you. I hear you. Good to see you. Good to see you. Oh, thank you so much, Anderson. I appreciate you. Thank you so much for the $2 super chat. He said Sasha stole the back from the killer bad choice. Oh, okay. Let's see. Murphin, how you doing, sir? Good to see you. Good to see you. Okay, white boy Rick. All right, shout out to you. Y'all in here deep. All right. All right. Oh, you said bacon. Bacon. Bacon? Okay. We appreciate you. Thank you. All right. So let's go on. Let's go on. Let's go on. Let's see. Oh, wait, hold on. Shout out to Lana. Thank you for stopping by. I appreciate you. Thank you. Let's see. Let's see. Who else? Shonark, thank you for stopping by. Amy, thank you for stopping by. I appreciate you, and thank you for subscribing. All right, let's go on, ladies and gents.
Throughout her entire trip to Arizona, there was only one other device pinging off of those same towers, and it belonged to a man named Mark Gooch. Mark Gooch was an airman working at Luke Air Force Base in Arizona, and at first glance it appeared he had nothing in common with Sasha outside of his cell phone records. Nevertheless,
Don't know what that
Lauren
means,
Nagel,
but
the lead
thank you for
detective on the
stopping by.
case, traveled to Luke Air Force Base and sat down with Mark for questioning. Detective Nagel introduces
Hi,
herself as
William. Thank you
Detective
for stopping by.
Jones,
I
as she
appreciate
got
you.
married at some point between this interview and her
Kenyatta,
appearance
thank
in
you for
court.
stopping by, and thank you for the compliment. I appreciate you. Hi, Samantha. Thank you for stopping by.
Alright, so I'm Detective Jones. I'm with the Sheriff's Office. I'm sure you're wondering what I want to chat with you about. Of course, I'm about to fill you in. We just gotta go through some procedural stuff first.
The interview
Greetings,
takes
we
place
unlocked.
in an
Good to see you,
interrogation
sir.
room on Luke Air Force Base and is an ideal setup according to the Reed technique, a popular method of interrogation. There's no barrier between Detective Nagel and Mark, allowing her to observe all of his movements and nonverbal communication. The walls appear to be bare, which is intentional to minimize distractions. It's also helpful that there's only one detective present, which can make the interview feel less threatening. Additionally, Mark is seated near the door, which helps send the message that he's able to leave at any time. This may make him less defensive and more likely to talk. It can also
Yes,
help
Kay.
prevent any false imprisonment claims
Interviews,
later.
interrogations
Detective
of
Nagel and Mark
cases
speak
that have
briefly about
already
his
been,
responsibilities as a
a
mechanic in
conviction
the Air
have already
Force
happened.
before the detective asks about Mark's life back home.
So what'd you do before Air Force then?
I worked in the diesel mechanic shop for about a year and did construction as well and grew up on a dairy farm. So
Oh yeah? That's pretty cool. Do you have siblings?
yes, ma'am. 6.
Oh wow, really?
Yep.
Somewhat like that, Tom. Thank you for stopping by. It's more of an immersive of going over cases that have already found convictions.
And where are they at now?
All over the country.
All over?
Yes, ma'am.
Are you the youngest?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Who would you say you're closest with?
I don't know. We kind of got separated pretty good after everybody started moving out.
So you're not close with any of them though?
I talk with them on the phone here and there, but I'm probably closest. Maybe my brother back in Wisconsin.
Oh, gotcha. Which brother's that?
It's Sam.
Sam. Okay.
Mark comes across as a polite, well-mannered airman, but as we'll see over the course of the interview, this is just a facade.
So what do you do on your time off?
Correct.
Play on my computer sometimes, play some games, go hiking as much as possible, but work on my car and bike a lot too. Try to stay active.
Cool. Do you like go to church or anything like that?
No, man, the church closed down.
Oh, that's closed too?
Coronavirus.
Got you. Is that something that you did before it closed?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, okay.
Yes, ma'am. I would attend church quite a bit.
No, okay, not trying to be a lawyer. I'm interested in these type of things, especially the psychology of when things happen
I
criminally.
guess the religion, I guess, is how you call it, but Christianity is how I was raised.
Oh, okay. Any like specific denomination of Christianity?
Mainly, they were called Mennonites, or Amish. I'm not sure how familiar you are with that.
Not really. Tell me about that.
But basically drive darker colored vehicles. We use flip phones when you have internet, stuff like that. So
Yes, we did. We did, Kay.
Pretty sheltered.
Difficult.
I got it.
With this admission, the police now have another unexpected link between Mark and Sasha. They're both Mennonites. When the detective brings up the topic of religion, Mark starts to fumble with his words, indicating that the topic of religion may be something Mark doesn't want to talk about.
In that last 6 months, have you traveled out of state anywhere?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, and we have to also take in consideration his how he has his body. He doesn't necessarily do this, but his arms is somewhat crossed. That means that he's trying to withhold information. He's not trying to be so forthcoming. So we just want to, mention that. And it's very strategic to put him in a room that's that small. There's nothing on it. There's no windows or anything. They put him next to the door to make him feel comfortable enough to believe that he can always exit. And only having one person interview them so he doesn't feel like he's being threatened. And I think it was also strategic for them to pick a female detective to interrogate him as well, because most men are not really fearful of women. So all of this is strategic. Let's go on.
When I came down here, I drove my car from Wisconsin down here.
Oh, okay. So you drove from Wisconsin to Phoenix?
Correct.
Anywhere else?
Pretty much state of Arizona. I try to do as much hiking as possible.
Mark doesn't know it yet, but he's just been caught in his first lie, the first of many. Using words like pretty much, mostly, and similar sentiments are qualifiers and often throw up a red flag to detectives. These words usually indicate half-truths or that there's something the individual may not wish to disclose. In this case, Mark saying that he
Correct.
pretty much stays in Arizona isn't true at all, and he's hiding something very big. He also uses filler sounds such as to delay answering so he has time to think about his response.
You're probably wondering, why I'm here. So I'm a detective. I'm with Coconino County Sheriff's Office.
Okay.
And I am working a homicide investigation.
Okay.
There was a girl named Sasha Krause that was killed. Did you hear about that case?
I've seen it in the news. Yes, ma'am.
Tell me what you know about the case.
Yeah, I mean, I'm, I understand why you didn't want to
Basically,
sound
she was
misogynistic, but
from
most men really don't
Mexico,
fear
right?
women. They're like, "Oh, you little people, y'all
And
always catty and
she
stuff. Get out of here."
left home. I left home one evening, and they found her in northern Arizona, like Flagstaff area, correct?
Right. So that's the case that I'm working. Any idea now why I'd want to talk to you at all?
Probably because I was probably traveling up in New Mexico area, probably.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
As the detective reveals why she's here interviewing him, Mark begins to show more and more signs that he may be hiding something. When asked what he knows about Sasha Krause's murder, Mark vaguely says that they found her. This is a soft way to describe something as violent as a homicide.
And they found her in northern Arizona.
When suspects shy away from using realistic words such as murdered or killed, this can be a red flag for possible deception as they're minimizing the crime. Additionally, Mark uses the qualifier probably 3 times.
Yeah, you're right, Joanne. Yeah, he has his legs crossed, so that's more of him trying to withhold information. And then it's very they're right on the spot about him using certain words, right? Like, yeah, they probably found her. They're trying to minimize that it wasn't a homicide. Just in case later on down the road when he does start giving up information about his whereabouts and whether or not he came across this victim, he would say, "Oh, it was an accident," or it was self-defense," or I didn't mean to do that. It wasn't intentional. So it's like leading up the pieces to say, yeah, they found her. It wasn't that big of a deal. That's why they do things like that. So you just have to pay attention. Hi, Michelle. How you doing? Good to see you again, ma'am. Good to see you. Yeah, look at his face. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I agree, Kay. I agree. Let's go on.
In 8 seconds.
Probably because I was probably traveling up in New Mexico area, probably.
So we've got these things called license plate readers.
Okay.
And your vehicle hit a license plate reader in that area. So tell me about that. You were traveling then. I'm a little confused because at first you said you hadn't traveled, but now did you go to New Mexico?
Yes, ma'am.
Your vehicle was picked up on that license plate reader in the general area on the same day actually that she went missing. And so what I'm doing at this point is I got to talk to everybody, as you can imagine. That's my job. Anybody who's in the area, anybody who could have seen something.
Despite the fact that Mark appears to be intentionally lying,
Hello.
Detective Nagel does a great job of calling him out for it while also remaining non-judgmental. She does this in order to keep Mark from feeling threatened and ending the interview, while also not letting him get comfortable in any of the lies he tells. The more someone repeats a lie, the more confident they will become. She also keeps him calm by not telling him the whole truth about why she's there. Although she's telling Mark that she's just interviewing everyone who got picked up on a certain license plate reader, we know that Mark is actually her number one suspect, and that he was found through phone records. This is just one example of the ways detectives can lie during interviews in order to get a suspect to tell them the truth.
So why were you in New Mexico that
Yes,
day?
it was right
I
already,
was planning
Tim.
on going,
Shout out to
so I
you.
was
Thank you
checking
for
out
stopping
Mennonite
by.
churches. I had traveled up to Flagstaff.
Mark takes a big pause after he says he traveled, followed by his foot twitching, and then he says to Flagstaff.
I had traveled up to Flagstaff.
This is something called a cadence switch, which is essentially a disruption in the flow and inflection of speech. In an interrogation, this can be seen as an indication of something being left out of a story, as the speaker paused and changed their speech pattern.
I was hoping that ski resort was still open.
Yeah.
They were closed due to coronavirus starting up. And so I figured I'd go check out a Mennonite church up in that area. So I knew some people from Wisconsin that used to live there. And I wanted to go just attend because I've really been missing that social life.
Actually, KJ, this is under fair use. As long as I give very good commentary and I'm not just completely playing it without giving my commentary for it, it's within fair use because we're reviewing something. It's not necessarily to take away from the original owners and their content. Oh, can you not hear it, Christine? Because I turned it up very high. So it's very, very high. But let's go on. Maybe I'll just talk, like stop and talk and not talk through it. So that will help.
Yeah.
I used to have Mennonite churches.
Is there any reason why you didn't tell me when I asked you if you've traveled? You didn't mention that to me. Is there a reason that you didn't?
No, I'm sorry. My memory just, I don't know. It's not what it used to be. I'm tired today. I'm sorry for failing to mention that, but I was not trying to hide or withhold information.
Okay, thanks.
Once again, Mark is caught
Yes,
in
I
a
have,
lie.
Cody.
While
I
explaining
have.
why he was in New Mexico, he mentions that he was wanting to go skiing. However, the ski resort he drove to, the Arizona Snow Bowl Ski Resort in Flagstaff, was closed due to COVID-19 restrictions. In actuality, the Snow Bowl didn't close for COVID until March, well after Mark would have been there on January 18th. As he says this, he half shrugs with his right shoulder. It's barely perceptible, but lines up when he says, "I don't know." Internally, he does know, and is just making excuses, but he's not confident in his memory excuse. Mark is also sitting with his leg crossed in a way that creates a barrier between himself and the detective. He switched to this guarded position after he was asked about traveling. When questioned about why he didn't mention this trip earlier, Mark's military formality helps him appear more truthful than he's actually being. He refers to Detective Nagel as ma'am and immediately apologizes for not mentioning the trip because he was tired. Unfortunately for Mark, no matter how polite he is, this omission is definitely a sign that he has a reason to keep this trip a secret, and the detective has certainly picked up on that.
Do you remember that day then when you went to New Mexico?
Yeah, I think I remember some of it.
So what time about did you leave here, Luke Air Force Base?
Probably left fairly early in the morning.
Okay.
And then what time did you say I was in the area?
I have to go grab I've got like the charts, the paper.
Okay.
What time? Well, let's go through the day. So when you say fairly early, what does that mean to you?
Probably about 7.
Okay.
7 is when I left to head up there. Stopped in Flagstaff for a while. Just got got some fuel, I believe.
This is one of the last fully truthful statements Mark says while recounting his trip to New Mexico. While he may think he's being sneaky with his lies, Detective Nagel knows a lot more than she's letting on, and is ready to catch every lie Mark throws her way.
Did you go anywhere else while you're in Flagstaff?
Nope, no, not on the way up. Pretty much straight driving. Had a really pretty snow-capped mountain up there.
Yeah.
At that time.
So you stopped in Flagstaff, you got gas, and then you think that you drove directly to the church in Farmington?
I stopped in Farmington to get some fuel.
Watch how the detective suddenly starts kicking her foot. Since this discussion is about the scene of the crime, she likely feels a lot of pressure with these questions, trying to make sure she gets his story, and also has what she needs to confront him later. With all of his deceptive behavior already, she's likely fairly certain that he is the person she's looking for, and these are really the high-stakes questions.
Sorry.
About 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I had swung by the church just to check their sign and see what time their services was, and they were, let me think, I think it was just Sunday evening.
At this point in the investigation, Detective Nagel has spent a lot of time at Sasha's church.
So they said something about his military background, right? And that's the reason why he can keep somewhat composure. And you're right, Julian, the guy is a narcissist, but it's also somewhat of the training too as well, right? He knows how to keep his composure under a lot of pressure. But we did see that he was cracking a little bit because he went into a defensive stance, his leg up, he had the crossing of the arms, he's leaning back in his seat. So that is like he's not trying to be forthcoming, he's trying to withhold. Then we seen that he lied about him having, or he didn't lie, but he didn't tell them initially that he had a trip that he was going to. And now he's explaining why he was there around the area that the body was found. So now he's saying that he went to just go get gas station. He wasn't necessarily at the church, or he doesn't realize that he was around the church. But we see a little bit things. We see these things that we're going to see a little bit more. But yeah, that composure stuff is with training. You know, you are under a lot of pressure. You need to know how to keep yourself cool. You need to know how to still think while you're dealing with that type of anxiety. And that's what we're actually seeing. Hi, Barry. How you doing, sir? Good to see you. Good to see you. Thank you so much for coming back. I appreciate you. I hope your day's going well. Let's go on.
Looking for any sign of what happened to her on January 18th. In her entire time there, the detective has never seen any sign even somewhat similar to the one Mark is claiming to have checked.
Did you talk to anybody while you were there?
No, there was no one at the church, and I didn't want to bother anybody. So.
Did you like it? I don't know. What is it? A church that like what you grew up in, or different?
It looked fairly similar, but it's not really the same. So I'm a little disappointed with the whole long drive and everything. I didn't really see it as working out long term to make it there.
Yeah, that is a long drive.
It'd be way too far to drive every weekend. So I talked to my friend. He wanted to go hiking on Sunday, and I really wanted to make it for that. I work with him in the shop. And
who's that friend?
His name's Kefley.
Mark claims that he made plans with Kefley to go hiking the following day. However, according to Kefley himself, the two actually went to a swap meet, also known as a flea market.
From what I'm understanding, it doesn't sound like you were there for very long.
No, man.
And then where did you go after that?
I can't remember if I was going to go look for a hike, or did I head straight back? I think I started, once he called me about the hike on Sunday, I think I started heading back.
He called you?
Correct.
While you were over there?
Correct.
Okay.
According to Mark, Kefley called him to discuss plans. However, the phone records disagree with Mark. Mark and Kefley only texted that day, and in fact, the only person that Mark spoke to on the phone was his brother Sam. Not only did Mark and Sam call, but they actually called each other 6 times, for a total of nearly 2.5 hours, which is longer than the two had talked on the phone for the last 6 months combined.
On the way back home, did you stop anywhere?
This is why we say you should be quiet and go ahead and get a lawyer, right? A lot of people don't realize that they might not have all the evidence, but they do have some evidence. And this is why they are interrogating you to find out more things that they don't know about. The simple fact that you're the one who drove to that area that supposedly your friend live at. Why would he call you? You know, why would he just randomly call you? Hey, you're over here where I'm at. Let's go hang out. No, it would make sense that you would call him saying, hey, I'm in your part of the town. Let's go hang out. So for him to say something completely different than what his friend said, and how the conversation went, kind of really messed him up right there, right? It definitely did. Definitely lets you know that he's lying, and he's lying about what he actually did, like when you were out there. And we don't even know whether or not if he did that. What if he just only went out there to commit that crime and he never actually even linked up with this friend? It's crazy.
I don't know. I might have made it Phoenix on a full tank. I don't know. I'd have to check.
Okay. So am I understanding correctly? You don't remember stopping anywhere?
No, ma'am.
Is that fair to say?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Do you remember what time you got back here to home?
It was fairly late. It was probably 8 or 9 o'clock.
Okay.
I got back.
Long day, man.
Yep.
Mark makes a lot of lip and mouth movements here, known as micro-expressions. One of the biggest indicators of deception and hiding something is a movement called disappearing lips, which Mark demonstrates. Once again, Mark's account of the trip contradicts his phone records.
Hi, Bella.
While he might say that he went straight home from New Mexico, the records actually show him stopping in Sunset Crater National Park for several hours. With Mark having officially told his story.
So Dragon said the problem is that these criminals think that by talking, they don't look guilty. But the best defense is to remain silent. Yes, especially when they say all the time when you are read your Miranda rights that anything that you say will be used against you. And like they're going to use it, right? They're going to use it against you. It doesn't even matter if you say something out of context, right? So even if you're under a whole bunch of pressure, stress, and anxiety because an incident occurred, you might say something that can look criminal because you're not in the right state of mind. You're under a amount of stress and anxiety. So this is why it's better for you to remain quiet, get a lawyer, gather up your wits and your logic again so you can explain things without all that emotion behind it. But you're absolutely right. A lot of people do, especially ones who feel like they're smarter than the average bear. They think that as long as they can tell a very convincing story, that people are going to just accept that, right? Because we know that they need probable cause. But sometimes you should just be quiet. It'll just help you. It will just help you better. Just be quiet. Just be quiet.
Story about where he was on the day of Sasha's murder. Detective Nagel is noticing more and more red flags. Mark consistently lies, hesitates, and supposedly struggles to recall information when he is asked about stops he made, times, and what he was doing at specific points throughout his trip. When a suspect has a memory of extremes, meaning their memory is either too good or too bad, this is seen as a red flag to detectives. Just over 2 months have passed since January 18th, so it doesn't make sense that Mark is struggling so much to recall basic information about his trip. Given that this trip was pretty out of the ordinary for him, the trip should actually stick out in his mind even more.
What do you think should happen to the person that did that to Sasha?
As far as, like, what are you getting at there?
Like if we caught the person who killed her, what should happen to them?
Well, you should probably let the law deal with it. Or maybe the Mennonite community has a way of doing things differently.
In the Reed technique, this line of questioning is known as the punishment question, and it can be a good indicator of deception. Individuals who give vague answers are more likely to be deceptive than those who answer with strong, definitive punishments.
Yes, that's a very good tactic to you, right? The punishment tactic, because of the simple fact, once you put the potential suspect in the position of being judge and jury, and you ask them how would they judge this person and what do you think the consequences if we find this person should be, it would tell you whether or not would they be a little bit more lenient or try to make excuses, or will they be like, no, I believe this is wrong, it's against the law, this shouldn't have happened for this person, and this person needs to get the consequence the highest to the extent, right? It will let you know, because only a person who would be in that situation will be sympathetic, like, hey, you shouldn't really give this person a consequence. Maybe they need to just give them this, but give them a slap on the wrist. That's how their mind works, because obviously they didn't want to be caught, right? They didn't want to be caught and they didn't want to be guilty. So of course they're going to feel that way. Yeah, I don't want to be caught. I don't want to do time for the crime that I did. Yes, let's just let that person off. And they're going to act in that way when they answer that question. So it's a very good tactic to use. Very good one.
Mark pauses for an incredibly long time after being asked what he thinks should happen to Sasha's killer, and he eventually settles on, I don't know. This is the exact type of vague answer that sets off alarm bells for detectives when it comes to
Hi,
the
Tana.
punishment
Thank you for
question.
coming. I appreciate
After a few
you.
more questions, Detective Nagel tells Mark that she's going to step out for just a few minutes to review her notes. After letting Mark stew for 10 minutes, Detective Nagel comes back in and gets ready to really take Mark's story apart and figure out what exactly it is that he's lying about.
On the way back, what time did you come back through the gate?
It was dark, possibly 8 or 9. Probably later than that, I'm not sure.
So what's like a reasonable time frame? So like you're saying around 8 or 9, like what's the latest you think you possibly came through that gate?
Probably could have been 1 or 2. 8 or 9 to 1 or 2 is probably the most time frame that I can think of.
Okay.
It was dark when I came through.
It's kind of a big time frame there though.
I understand.
8 p.m. to 2 a.m. is pretty different.
I understand.
Okay.
Oh, thank you.
So you want to
Leo.
stick with that?
Yes, ma'am.
Now that Detective Nagel has informed Mark his story doesn't add up, it's likely that he's going to respond with even less specifics than he was before, hence his 6-hour time span. If Mark is adamant that he got home at 8 p.m., but then video footage shows otherwise, it will reflect badly on his credibility. On the other hand, if he admits that it was 2 a.m. when he got home, then there's a large chunk of time that's completely unaccounted for between Mark leaving the church and arriving home. While Mark might be trying to avoid getting caught in a lie by avoiding specifics, in actuality, this just makes him even more suspicious.
So what if I told you that the time that you came in the gate that morning was 6:53 in the morning?
Would not
Hi,
guess
Michelle.
it
This is
that
the
late.
old case. How are
That's
you?
a
Thank
long
you for coming
time.
by.
Yes, ma'am.
So how do you explain that?
I stopped and slept in the car. On the way back, I had trouble staying awake. Tried to stop and sleep multiple
I
times.
agree,
but
Martin.
Couldn't really sleep. It was cold.
Okay.
On the drive back.
Okay.
Now, Mark has to scramble to fill in the gaps that Detective Nagel is pointing out.
They have to.
Mark claimed he left at 7 in the morning on January 18th.
Just to stop it for a little bit, it says, Dragon says psychological techniques that detectives use are very effective to get a suspect to talk. Yes, and they have to, right? Because we don't know if this person is a habitual criminal. We don't know whether this person have committed crimes before and they have gotten away with it. We also don't know whether or not this person is on the spectrum of being a psychopath, right? Or psychopathy. We don't know, right? So they have to use some tactics to pretty much get them to tell on themselves. And I know some people believe that that is a way of like lying or coercion, but technically it really isn't, because if they're the ones who give that information out, they didn't really coerce you. But you have to bribe them, a stint of fear that you're going to do something to them. That's what coerce is. Them just saying, hey, listen, ask you a couple of questions and you might not understand how they're asking the questions. That's not, that's not them tricking them up, but they have to do it. Well, then what's the point of having an investigation? Most of these people who are quote unquote criminals, they're all going to say that they're innocent, right? They're all going to say that they're innocent. Oh, I didn't do it. I didn't do it. And if we just say, I didn't do it, and we left it as that, do you know how many more cold cases that we will have out here if we just took a person by their word, strictly by their word? Or how many cases where someone could have literally just been in the wrong place at the wrong time and evidence been thrown on them and we didn't do our due diligence and we put somebody who's innocent in jail. So we have to use all the tactics that is available to us in our toolbox to try to get it right as best as possible. Let's go on.
And according to the detective's records, he didn't get home until nearly that same time the following morning. Not only is this around 10 hours after the original time Mark gave for when he got home, but it's almost 5 hours after the revised time he gave. It's also highly suspicious that he has never mentioned this supposed nap he took in his car
Oh,
on the
yeah.
way home.
I agree.
And it definitely comes across that Mark is doing anything he can to try and cover up his lies.
Not
Have you
unless
gone
he's
to
the tank.
Flagstaff
Nothing really.
any more than that one time?
No, ma'am. Except when I came down
Yeah.
from Wisconsin to Luke. I don't remember which route I took coming in.
Okay. So after this New Mexico trip, you have not gone back up to Flagstaff again, is that right?
Not to my knowledge.
Mark saying not to my knowledge doesn't make sense here, because how could he travel somewhere without his knowledge?
And I just want to say thank you so much, Ariel, for gifting 5 memberships. I appreciate you. I appreciate you. You don't know how much I appreciate you, sis. Thank you so much for always supporting. And shout out to the new members, Imperfect. How are you doing, sir? Good to see you. Good to see you. Shout out to Odie Niff. Good to see you. Thank you for stopping by. Let's see. Crapola, thank you for stopping by. How are you? BATL, how you doing? Thank you for joining the membership. Tora Williams, thank you so much for joining the membership. Dawn, thank you so much for joining the membership. And Kim Folk, how you doing? Thank you so much for joining the membership. All right, shout out to Ariel. I appreciate you. I appreciate you. I appreciate you. Yeah, Eric, he did say that he bought the bottle about 11:15. That's crazy. I'm doing well. Thank you, Crapola. I appreciate you. Thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. All right, let's go on.
This is a selective memory statement, but in this situation, it also just doesn't even fit with the statement, and he would have been better off going with "I'm not sure," or "I don't think so," or some other selective memory statement. He must be starting to really feel some anxiety about this, because his thought processes are less logical and his word choices aren't great.
So I know that you went back up to Flagstaff a couple days later.
Okay.
And I've got a couple different ways to confirm that, like your gate checkouts and evidence that you were up in Flagstaff. So did you go back to Flagstaff for some reason a couple days later?
Possibly went for a drive. Went to go. I don't remember.
When asked about going to Flagstaff again, Mark hesitates for a long time before answering. Significant delays can be a red flag for deception. Some questions require thought, so it would make sense for someone to stop and think before answering. However, it doesn't take this much thought to remember if you recently went to a town 2 hours away from where you live, meaning that Mark's hesitation.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy, right? It's kind of weird that he's like stumbling and he's pausing a lot and he's trying to, to tell the story. This incident, according to when he was getting interrogated, didn't happen that long ago. It was only like a couple of days ago, and he made it seem like it was a big vacation trip that he took. So how do you not remember anything that you did around that time when you was out there? And for him to act so spacey, spacious about giving details about where he did, where he went. Were you intoxicated the whole entire time? Was you under the influence the whole entire time? He haven't said that he was. So, like, I don't understand. Like, he's just being so space offish, and what they're saying is probably correct. Like, if he's really trying to jump over the fact of the things that he probably really did, it's going to take him time for him to make up a good story that he feels that is believable about what he did, right? And he's taking his time to do it.
Hesitation just comes off as suspicious. Clearly, Mark isn't going to be truthful about what he was really up to on January 18th.
Right.
So
exactly.
Detective Nagel changes gears and starts asking Mark more about his Mennonite connection to Sasha.
Earlier when we were talking, you mentioned how when you're not born into the Mennonite church, we use that word outsider.
You got to
like
drink,
you're kind of
right?
an outsider compared to like people who are born in. Sasha was like that too. Did you know that her family was not born into Mennonite church? So I'm wondering if you're willing to kind of tell me. I noticed I just saw a little bit of emotion in you when we talked about that. Is there something that happened to you in the Mennonite church that upsets you?
Not really, was just a way of life, and I didn't really like it, and I was happy to be out of it. My parents left the church.
By stating not really, he's denying anything happened to him, but not strongly. By using a qualifying statement instead of just saying no, it suggests that there is something, but he doesn't want to talk about it.
Okay. So Mark, what I do for a living is talk to people.
Understood.
And I just feel like I can read people a little. I know I don't know you. I'm not going to even pretend I do. So, but there's something there. And you can, is it just something you don't want to talk about? Something that happened that made you leave the church?
No, ma'am. I pretty much left the church when my parents decided to leave.
Okay.
Mark uses another qualifier, but what is more interesting are his lip movements. It seems like his lip movements are his fidgeting behaviors, but he's probably had some training about not showing anxiety both in the home he grew up in, as well as in the military, so he doesn't have a lot of the bigger nonverbal cues that we look for. Yet these lip movements, which continue to return to the disappearing lips, make it clear that he's withholding information. It's almost like he's trying to hold in whatever it is he really wants to.
Yeah, you have to ask a question about that, because I'm still trying to figure out. Well, like, we know people attack people for whatever their reason is, and they don't even need a reason to attack people. But the way how he responded when she asked him about growing up in that secular religion and why his family left the church and if anything happened to him, the way how he kind of tensed up with that, and then with the mouth movement, now I'm trying to wonder, like, did you have a personal vendetta against this specific woman? Because you didn't attack just any old kind of woman. You specifically attacked this particular woman at this particular church. You knew that she was a teacher there, for the kids, and she was heavily in that church, working at that church. So I'm trying to see whether or not, if there's any connection to why your parents decided that they no longer wanted to follow that faith, and why this particular woman who's a part of that faith, was harmed the way that she was.
To say. While Mark may be playing it cool, the detective knows he's hiding something. Before this interview even began, Detective Nagel was able to go through Mark's text messages and saw some concerning things regarding his views on Mennonites.
That is definitely a possibility.
In a text conversation, Mark and Sam are told by their brother Jacob, a Virginia state trooper, that he had just given 2 Mennonites a speeding ticket. Mark and Sam are both overjoyed to hear this, and Mark even says that he hopes that Jacob treated the Mennonites like shit. Sam makes a point of calling the Mennonites cultists, giving some insight into how he and his brothers feel about the religion. In another conversation between just Mark and Sam, Mark tells Sam that his surveillance on the Arizona Mennonites that morning was boring. The use of the word surveillance was incredibly alarming to authorities, and clued them into the fact that he...
All right, so there we go of the motive, right? Right there, those messages show you his motive. He has a hatred for that sector of religion. He has a hatred towards them. Don't know what happened when his family was a part of it, but whatever happened to his family where they decided that they no longer wanted to be a part of it, it seemed like he was doing surveillance on them, and was still watching them, like he wanted to pick them apart piece by piece, or try to make sure that when they're by themselves, he can attack them one by one. That's what it seems like now. Like, why are you watching them? If you wanted to get away from this cult or secular community, why are you going back there? Your family left, they uprooted you, they took you out that church. You don't have to follow that religion anymore. So why are you going back there and you're watching them? You're spying on them, you're stalking them. And it's like you're waiting in a cut, and then you're having conversations with your brother, talking like it's a problem, because it shows that he was kind of like hunting, right? It shows that he was kind of like hunting, and he does have a lot of ill will against this particular secular group. It's not going to help them. And I'm sure that they have this information or they already seen these messages. And that was one of the reasons why the detective asked him about how he felt about this particular religion, and you grew up in it and your parents and you no longer follow it, and what's the reason why. That's probably the reason why they led onto that. But yeah, that's crazy. Talk about people without much life to live for, a bunch of yeah. Okay, let's go
He
on.
may have been planning some kind of attack on the community for quite a while.
We have a detective talking to Sam right now.
Okay.
In Wisconsin. Okay? And so I want you to know that for this main reason. Sam's telling us some stuff, and you're talking to me, and I want to just make sure, what both of you guys are telling us lines up. And what I know a little bit about from what Sam said is, sounds like something's going on here as far as like maybe you have hard feelings against the Mennonite church, or maybe like a grudge or something like that.
So let me get this straight. You're talking to Sam right now, huh? Mm-hmm. So it sounds like I need to get a lawyer because you're trying to pin something on me.
Well, I read you your rights at the beginning of this.
Yes, ma'am. And I'd like to see a lawyer now.
You would like to speak with a lawyer?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So I'm not going to ask you any more questions then. I am going to have you sit here for a few minutes.
Understood.
And then I'm going to kind of explain to you what else is going on today, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. You go with that water?
Correct.
All right.
Detective Nagel is using a bit of the prisoner's dilemma technique, pinning one suspect against the other. We see him do a big anchor point movement immediately after, and his illustrators don't line up with his words. As soon as the detective leaves the room, Mark unbarriers his legs. Detective Nagel's comments clearly struck a nerve with Mark, and for the first time, we see him change his reaction and become stern. He clearly doesn't like that his brother is also being interviewed. Perhaps Mark has good reason to fear that Sam will say too much to the cops, as while Sam refused to answer the majority of questions during his brief interview, he did say one thing that caught detectives' attention. Not only did Sam claim that Mark had a grudge against Mennonites, but when asked if he knew why the cops were questioning him, Sam ominously replied no, but that he knew his brother and how he is, giving police even more reason to be suspicious of Mark. With his interview concluded, Mark was served several search warrants for.
Yeah, I would definitely see that his demeanor would definitely change, because betrayal, right? That's what would make him trigger if he thought that his brother betrayed him. We already seen the messages that he was having with his brother, talking about his how much he loathed the Mennonites and stuff, and talking about how he's doing surveillance on them and where they go and where they move. So if they said that they spoke to his brother and they know that eventually they're going to position them that, hey, y'all need to hurry up and tell us what's happening before the other person pins it on you, that sense of betrayal from his brother would make him change his the way how he move and the way how he talk, even the tone of his voice. Yeah, it would definitely change it. It would definitely change it. Yeah, Julian, I was wondering. He said he wants to speak to a lawyer 2 hours later. Yes, 2 hours later now, when he thinks that his brother was already interviewed. Now I need to speak to a lawyer. Sir, you should have did that from the beginning. You should have did that from the beginning. You should have did that from the beginning. Let's go on.
For his phone, apartment, and car, all of which proved to be very enlightening to the authorities. The first thing investigators noticed when looking at Mark's car was how spotless it was. Upon further inspection, they were able to recover a receipt that showed Mark had gotten his car heavily detailed on February 23rd, the day after it was announced to the public that Sasha's body had been found. Additionally, the police also discovered some black nitrile gloves in the car, alongside some suspicious stains. Now that detectives are finally able to scour Mark's phone, more inconsistencies begin to pop up. According to his deletion records, Mark had deleted several files and documents from his Google account early in the morning of January 19th, after returning home from his New Mexico trip. He also deleted several texts with Sam where he discussed getting his car detailed, stating that he wanted the detailers to clean the interior really well. With several concerning, if somewhat circumstantial things found in Mark's phone and car, they had enough to detain him. However, police still didn't have enough evidence to actually connect Mark to Sasha's killing, never mind justify an arrest and guarantee a conviction. There was still the puzzling question of why, as there was no clear motive why Mark would have killed Sasha. Investigators soon began interviewing and interrogating the people closest to him in the hopes that they could shed some light on the case. First, they started with Alex Golub, Mark's good friend from basic training. For the most part, Alex said that Mark seemed completely normal throughout their friendship. However, there was one odd moment Alex mentioned that really stuck out to detectives.
Has Mark ever talked about killing people to you?
No, ma'am. Just the text that we did have. We were going to go spec ops together, and we were kind of looking at TAC B. And he mentioned in one of the texts that something like he'd be happy to get paid for killing people.
Exactly.
But I was just like, oh, I mean, that's kind of like a huge thing. It's just a weird thing to say. So I was like, oh, that's just huge. And also, you know, it's the enemy. So I mean, I don't really take it as like he's wanting to kill innocents. It's more like the enemy.
Okay. These are exactly what you're referring to, probably. See that the highlighted conversation between you guys?
Yes, ma'am.
Is that what you were just talking about?
Let's go TAC B together. Yes, ma'am. Do you have the one where it says he? Yes.
Oh,
yes.
there. Be careful.
Where it says,
now,
I would like to get paid to kill people.
Right.
And I don't have the next page, but from what I recall of that conversation, you didn't say, "Whoa, man, that's weird," or you guys kind of just went on.
I think I just typed his name in all caps because that's what I would always say.
Okay.
If he said something just like strange.
While Alex laughed off Mark's comment, there's no denying that it's concerning. This text from Mark implies that he may have been harboring these sorts of morbid desires long before targeting Sasha.
It was about respect too. Like one guy in our sister class, he had his feet up on the desk one day, and Gooch was like, "Oh, you should probably get your feet off the desk." And the other dude made a snarky comment like, "Oh, you're telling me what to do," kind of thing now.
Yeah.
And I could tell that Gooch got pretty mad at that. I was like, calm down.
Okay.
From Alex's story about Mark, we can see some indications that Mark may struggle with anger control. The story is also indicative of excessive rigidity. People who are very rigid when it comes to social rules may often get into confrontations with others because they can't cope with seeing any rule-breaking behaviors they deem inappropriate. While this might seem contradictory at first, given the accusations against Mark, he may feel that the rules don't apply to him. This is a trait typically found in individuals with antisocial personality disorder.
How do you remember Mark reacting to stress?
Just stiff as a board, very disciplined. Never screamed back, never lost his cool, kind of thing.
Okay.
You'd see his face get red, but I thought he was just embarrassed.
Alex describes Mark as stiff as a board and mentions his face turning red. These traits, in conjunction with how we saw Mark acting during his interview, could be signs that he's emotionally cut off. This is another trait that's common among individuals with antisocial personality disorder and is tied to their overall lack of empathy. While these few indicators certainly aren't enough to give Mark a full diagnosis, they can give us some insight into how he might think. As investigators question those around Mark, they learned something very interesting that could blow this case wide open. According to Kemper Kepfley, Mark's best friend at Luke Air Force Base, Mark had secretly kept a gun on base for several months. However, he'd recently given the gun to another friend to store off base. Detectives were quick to track this gun down and bring it in for testing, which showed that it was the same caliber as the bullet that killed Sasha. However, while the police were in possession of Mark's gun, the case took a turn none of the investigators were expecting.
I got a text just a few minutes ago from Sam Gooch that said Mark Gooch had said that I could help him out with his possessions.
The detective is fine with Kemper working with Sam to get some of Mark's belongings. However, he does have one request.
He starts asking about the gun. That's what we want to know about.
Right. Okay.
And don't like provide him any information that you know about the gun. If you can help that. So we're asking you not to do that.
Within a week of this call with Kemper, detectives were notified that Sam had reached out to Jeremiah Levesque, the last person who had Mark's gun before it was given to the police. While working with Jeremiah, the police listened in on a phone call between him and Sam, where Sam made plans to travel across state lines to Arizona in order to dispose of Mark's gun before the police could get it.
So I'm wondering how why I'm okay, he's on a base, but was that gun registered? Did they not know about that he had that gun when he went to that base? I mean, because you're supposed to notify them, right? You're supposed to notify them. They're supposed to see your license and all that stuff like that. So they should have been knew that he had a gun. And a lot of people, they trade guns and buy guns and sell guns amongst each other all the time. But the way how he made it seemed like he secretly was able to come in with a gun and nobody knew it, and then he tried to sell it off to one of his comrades. I'm just wondering how did that happen? Especially if it was a PCS move. But let's go on.
In the call, Sam told Jeremiah, "Considering what's going on, if you're comfortable, I would say get rid of the gun any way you deem fit. If not, I will deal with it whenever I get there." Jeremiah was then able to arrange a meetup point with Sam where they planned to trade Mark's gun. However, unbeknownst to Sam, Jeremiah had been given a replica gun by the police, and officers were going to be covertly hidden around the meetup site, waiting to make their arrest.
Target just pulled into the second parking spot.
Yeah, no problem. There you go, sir.
Hey, move.
That's good.
Hey, call it in.
I can't. My phone. Where's your phone? Oh, shit. Target's getting back in his car.
He's got the gun.
Target has a gun.
He has it?
He has it. Let's go. Go.
That is definitely true, Julian.
Office, get out of the car!
Get on the car.
Get off the car! Step out now! Get your hands up! Step away from the car! Step towards me! Turn away from me now! Get on your knees! Get on your knees! Put your hands behind your head! Passenger, get out of the car! Passenger, in the back, get out of the car!
With their sting operation successful and Sam Gooch arrested, it was time for the detectives to find out why Sam was so set on disposing of Mark's gun. Detective Troy Short was sent in to interrogate Sam, and he was immediately met with resistance.
You want to start from the beginning and kind of...
I believe you think I know more than I do, and
So explain to me what that means. You know what I mean? If I know more than you do, help me understand that.
I don't think this is going to be a productive conversation for me, and
Do you want to tell me about tonight?
No, sir.
Okay. Do you want to tell me why you guys came halfway across the country to pick up a gun?
No, sir.
Okay. Do you understand why you're here in the room?
Yes, sir.
Here's the deal, Sam. A part of me even feels bad right now because, like I told you back in Wisconsin, you weren't a focus. You weren't a suspect.
Mm-hmm.
And now, because of some bad choices, you're in some serious trouble. Not as serious as Mark by any means. You know what I mean? He's in some serious trouble, and I tried to explain that to you back there. Is there anything you can do to help yourself right now, or help yourself out of this mess, or?
As much as I would like to, I frankly do not believe you have my best interest in mind.
Okay.
And I do not think discussing this with you would be helpful.
While Sam may be refusing to give the detective the answers he's looking for, he has yet to actually invoke his Miranda rights. Whether or not Sam knows this, refusing to answer a line of questioning is not enough to stop an interrogation and get a lawyer. We can see that Sam is being very cautious in how he responds to Detective Short. When he pauses to take a sip of water after being asked a question, it's likely that he was doing this as a stalling tactic to allow himself time to carefully pick his words. Sam appears to have some prior knowledge about interrogations, as he is correct that the detective doesn't have the suspect's best interests in mind. He appears reluctant to speak, as he likely doesn't want to incriminate himself or his brother further by saying the wrong thing.
Why did he call you for this extended period of time on that specific day? Specifically the day.
It's not only with only over about a gun, James. This is about a gun that was used in the unaliving of a woman. That's why. That's why. And he's the brother, and he tried to get that gun or dispose of that gun for his other brother. He is right though. This guy do understand what he's doing, but the reason why instead of him just saying I want a lawyer, he's trying to me personally, he's trying to figure out how much does the detectives know. So that's why he hasn't invoked the listen, I don't even want to talk to you. I want to see a lawyer. He just figures that if he's very careful with his with his answers when he's answering these questions, that he'll have an understanding and idea how much the detective know, and he can outweigh whether or not he needs to inform them on something that will help him later on down the road, or if he needs to say, hey, the interview is over, I want a lawyer, and that's it. You could definitely tell that he understands what's going on in that room way more than what his brother did. His brother was giving up red flags everywhere about being standoffish and everything. But him, he knows how to keep his composure. He understands that they're not here to help him, right? So he's going to sit back, find out how much they know, and decide whether or not if he needs to include more information to help himself. Let's go on.
That he's under arrest for murder. You know what I mean? Extensive amount of phone calls that day. For an elaborate amount of time. Completely outside the norm of you guys' normal communication process. Why are you in Arizona? Why did you fly halfway across the country? Why did you obtain a new phone with a new phone number to do this? Why are you here picking up a gun that you know belongs to Mark? If you don't know what he did, then why would you do that?
Thank you for stopping
You know,
by.
he allegedly did. Okay, I understand that. So you know he allegedly murdered somebody.
Correct.
Okay, so why are you picking up a gun that belonged to him?
Yeah.
Specifically, when I told you, when I interviewed you back in Wisconsin, do you know Mark has any guns? And you're like, nope. I don't think he's allowed to have one on base. You know what I mean?
Yes, sir.
So what's the deal?
I would like to collect all Mark's possessions as possible. If that gun is his possession, I would like to collect that as well.
Sam refuses to tell the detective why he tried to dispose of Mark's gun, but there are a few possible explanations. Mark claimed that Sam was his closest brother. It's possible that he called Sam and used their close relationship to convince Sam he had to get rid of the gun. Not because Mark killed someone, but because police thought he did. It's more than evident that Sam has a distrust of law enforcement, so it would make sense for Mark to prey upon this feeling in order to persuade his brother that if Sam didn't dispose of this weapon, the police were going to frame Mark for something he didn't do.
It's attempted destruction of evidence, attempted tampering with evidence, attempted hindering prosecution. I mean, there's 2 felonies in there. Like, this is a big deal. So do you want to help me understand it? Do you want to explain it to me? Do you want to...
I don't think so.
Hey, Flo.
What is next in this process?
The next part is you go down to jail.
Okay. The way I see it, talking and discussing this with you, you will only use it against me to make these charges stick, and to further incriminate Mark.
Since Sam clearly understands how his words could be used against him, it's odd that he's still agreeing to sit here rather than asking for an attorney or outright refusing to respond. It's possible that his curiosity got the better of him, and he wants to find out how much the detectives...
What did I say? Didn't I call it? Didn't I call it, ladies and gentlemen? I told you that is exactly what his tactic is. The way how he was acting, he did not call on a lawyer. He could have ended this whole interview to begin with, because at the end of the day, they only caught him trying to pick up a gun, right? that's small potatoes to an actual homicide, right? So the simple fact that he's sitting there and he's not saying, you know what, I just want to speak to my lawyer, I'll talk to my lawyer, or you could talk to my lawyer, and he's willingly giving some information and withholding. He wants to figure out how much the detectives know. I told you, I called it. Sometimes I can read people so well. And shout out to Barry. Thank you so much. I appreciate you, Barry. Thank you. Make sure y'all hitting this like button when y'all coming in, to stop by, even if you don't stay. Truly appreciate it. It helps the channel. And let's keep it going.
Know about Mark's crime. It's also possible that Sam is afraid and feels that if he at least agrees to sit in the interrogation room, he may be able to dodge the consequences of having helped Mark. With Sam's interview at a stalemate, the detectives are forced to look elsewhere for information. Throughout their entire investigation, the one thing they haven't been able to deduce clearly is motive. Was this just a random killing? Or was there something more at play here? While it's clear that Mark had some sort of grudge against Mennonites, it made no sense that someone with no prior criminal history would suddenly plan an elaborate murder 6 hours away from their home and target someone they'd never even heard of before. At least that's what Detective Nagel thought until she spoke with some Mennonites from Wisconsin and discovered that Mark's past wasn't quite as clean as it seemed. In a phone interview with Mark's former pastor, James Luke Martin, Detective Nagel
Again, like I stated before, I said that it had to be personal, and he specifically targeted that woman. He could have came across children. He could have came across the men that's a part of that sector religion anytime that he want, because he didn't really live that far from them, right? So he specifically targeted this woman for a reason, and that's what read to me when I was reviewing it. And then when he said that he has such a hatred towards this secular religion, and then his family took him out the church, all that came to me. It seemed like anything that he did was a very personal situation, and it wasn't just, oh, I'm just randomly just picking someone and I just see a woman, and I'm just going to snatch her up. This, like I said, this woman was a teacher. This woman was in the church. You literally brushed over when the female detective was asking you about, what happened in the church, the reason why your family no longer wanted to be a part of the church, and do you have any gripe with them? He tried to refrain from saying anything about the history of him being a part of this religion and why he's no longer in it. So I've felt that it was very personal, and it seems like it's playing out that it was a specific reason why that woman was attacked to begin with. So let's go on.
learned that no one at Mark's former church was surprised to learn that he'd now been arrested in connection with such a heinous crime, as Mark had a reputation for taking revenge on others. Mark had also allegedly been involved in several robberies at the church. When the church tried to punish him for his involvement, his parents stepped in and decided to leave the church for being too critical of Mark. However, this was not the end of Mark's criminal activities. While living with his sister in Pennsylvania, Mark was accused of stealing money from the local Mennonites. Soon after, everyone who accused Mark of stealing money discovered that their cars suspiciously stopped working. After investigating further, these Mennonites found that sand had been placed into the oil pans of their cars, causing their engines to stop working. While those affected weren't able to prove it was Mark who put the sand there, it doesn't seem like a coincidence given his interest in mechanics and apparent taste for revenge. Detective Nagel then spoke to Jonathan Martin, the son of Mark's pastor, who provided further examples of Mark getting caught stealing. Jonathan even said that when he was angry, Mark would prowl around the Mennonite community to see what he could find. After speaking with Jonathan's son, Detective Nagel learned that Mark had allegedly robbed the Martins' family store. However, charges were never pressed due to the fact that the store security camera had its memory card stolen, so there was never visual proof of Mark being the one who robbed the store. While there may not have been any evidence of Mark's involvement at the time of the robbery, Detective Nagel was able to actually find the security footage from that robbery on Mark's own phone. and it showed a man with Mark's height and build robbing the store. In one of the photos, a car that looked suspiciously like Mark's could be seen in the background. With these photos, Detective Nagel had what appeared to be tangible proof that these accusations against Mark weren't just hearsay. Eventually, the detective got a hold of Jared Ulrich, a man who claimed to be Mark's partner in crime in the past. Jared openly confessed to Detective Nagel about all the robberies he'd allegedly committed with Mark, and he described in detail how Mark would try to frame other people in the community for their crimes. There definitely seemed to be evidence that Jared may have been telling the truth, as a series of texts were found on Mark's phone, all of which had been recently deleted. In these texts, Mark talked to Sam about Jared never understanding the real cost of getting caught. Mark then asked Sam to remotely wipe Jared's phone, something that he also asked Sam to do to his own phone after he fell under suspicion for Sasha's murder. While all of this information against Mark was damning enough, there was still one more disturbing truth to learn. Through many more interviews, Detective Nagel was eventually put in contact with Andrew and Galen Headings, a pair of brothers who were close with Mark during his time in Wisconsin. Andrew recounted a time where he had confronted Mark for stealing, and during their conversation, Mark was so cold and bitter that Andrew said he feared for his life. Galen had an even more disturbing revelation for Detective Nagel, as he told her about Mark's alleged inappropriate actions towards women. According to Galen, Mark confessed to him that he'd allegedly assaulted a young girl his sister was babysitting when he was around 10 to 13 years old. However, this claim has never been publicly proven, and there's no evidence of it being true. Still, with this information, it became clear that Mark always had the capacity to harm others, and allegedly had many times in the past. Mark's motive in harming Sasha was also more evident than ever. All the unfounded anger and resentment he had towards the Mennonite community had been steadily growing over the years, and as it did, Mark took his revenge against them further and further. Up to this point, charges had never been pressed against Mark, and he felt like he could outsmart anyone.
So that's just crazy, right? You are a part of this community. You have been a terror on this community, and this community still showed you grace. You was robbing from the churches. You was putting sand in these folks' tank so they couldn't go sell their produce. You could have been sexually assaulting the women in that. So you and your family didn't just up and leave. Y'all got kicked out. Y'all got kicked out of the community because of your behavior and the things that you were doing. And even with that, they still did not arrest you. So that's the only reason why you was even able to get into the military, because they didn't put no paperwork on you. They decided to keep it in-house and just remove you from the community. You don't want to do right. You don't want to follow the laws of the land. Just go about your business. Have a nice day. And they didn't want to destroy your life. They didn't want to put any record on you. And that's how you was able to get into the military. So you had all this anger against this secular community because they were protecting their community from a wild man like yourself, who don't want to be bound to no rules, regulations, or anything. And you think that that's a right to have a anger against them? You're mad at them. They wouldn't allow you to continue to steal from them and do crazy things in that community. That's what you're mad at them about? So you go into the military, you learn basic training things. You learn certain things that you might not learn in a regular job. And you, instead of utilizing the things that you learn in the military to do what you're supposed to do, serve and protect, you utilize your knowledge and things that you got from the military to attack this group. Like, yeah, shoot, this guy is super duper a sociopath. He is completely 100% a sociopath, and he's on it. To me, it seemed like he's on the higher spectrum of that, of antisocial personality. That's the new thing that they call it now. They don't even say sociopath, it's antisocial personality, because even narcissism falls under that. Yeah, like now that I see everything coming together, what he did, and also it seemed like his brother was also involved in it. They was out there robbing these people, and then you're mad because they wouldn't allow you to rob them anymore. So now you wanted to strike harm on them, and you took your you one of your plans. You took your anger on this woman as a part of this community. That's just sad, man. That's really sad.
Even the police. With this misplaced confidence, Mark decided to see if he could get away with the ultimate crime, murder. It appears that Mark had gone to the Mennonite community that day in search of a victim, and tragically, Sasha was in the wrong place at the wrong time. Mark grabbed her from her car late at night and no one saw a thing. Still, that didn't prevent him from getting caught. Unfortunately for him, while no one had previously pressed any charges for his theft, the state of Arizona was more than happy to charge Mark for Sasha's murder and put him on trial. Mark's trial began on September 24th, 2021. In January of 2022, the jury found Mark guilty on charges of kidnapping and first-degree murder, earning him a life sentence. For his help in covering up Mark's crimes, Sam Gooch pleaded guilty and received 3 years probation. With both Sam and Mark dealt with, Sasha Krause and her family finally received the justice they deserve.
Yeah, that's really sad. I really didn't like that one, because it's like you had no real reason to be upset with this community, whether or not if they were a cult or something. Like, listen, don't be a part of it. Just go away. But you wasn't even mad about that. You was literally mad because they caught on to you. They realized that you was a problem in the community, and they didn't want to deal with you anymore. And you're mad and you want to do that because you think that you have the right to steal from these folks. You think you have the right to sexually assault the women in that community. Like, I just can't believe it. Like, that's where your anger stemmed from. Your anger stemmed for you not being able to do vile, cruel things to other people. So I have to take my revenge on you because I'm supposed to be allowed to use and abuse you. I'm supposed to be allowed to utilize the things that you work for, and you supposed to let me do it. And you know what's so funny? That is a lot of sociopaths mindset, that the rules are not for them, the rules is for everybody else, and I am entitled to you whether you want me to be entitled to you or not. And that's how he operated. He got exactly what he deserved from that. So I think he should have got a little bit more time. And then with the brother, yeah, he only got 3 years probation, but he only got that because he actually helped them. I would have gave him at least, like, a couple of years too, because he was sitting on the in those messages talking crazy about them as well. He ain't all the way innocent. He knew he knew somewhat what his brother was up to. And you didn't go to the cops. You didn't call the police. You didn't say, this is wrong. You didn't do any of that. So I don't know. All right, so the next one that I have is I have that there was an unaliving that was caught on camera. So we're going to look at this and see how this plays out as well. And just make sure you're hitting the like button while you're still sitting in here. I truly appreciate you. It helps the channel and the more than you actually really know. So let's go on. Let's look at this one.
Is there anything that you can tell us, please?
I can't tell you anything, man. Is that a boogie hole? That's weird, yeah. Police! It's not gonna be anything.
A seemingly ordinary welfare check brought San Antonio authorities to the apartment of 34-year-old Martel DeRuin, but nothing could have prepared them for the shocking discovery waiting on the other side of the locked door.
I could see the individual lying on his back.
Thank you, Chevy. I appreciate
dried
you.
blood all around him.
It was pretty obvious he had been looking out the peephole to someone when he was shot.
Amid a trail of clues scattered throughout the scene, the case quickly morphed into a mysterious puzzle. The killer appeared to have executed the perfect plan, unaware that her evil secret had been caught on camera.
Yes.
Okay, and this is the towers?
Yes.
Okay, and your name?
My name is Joya Duran.
Shortly before noon on January 26, 2021, San Antonio officers arrived at the Towers Apartments on La Cantera Parkway in San Antonio, Texas, in response to a call.
San Antonio Police, this is Christy. How can I help you?
I'm in Louisiana, but I have a stepson out there in San Antonio, and family members have been trying to call him since Saturday, and we haven't been getting any response back. And we wanted to know if you guys could do a wellness check just to see if everything's okay with him.
And who are we checking on?
Martell, Martell, Duran.
Their destination was the fourth-floor apartment of Martell Duran, and signs of trouble emerged almost immediately.
Is that a bully hole? That's weird. Police!
Despite repeated knocks, there was no response from inside. The discovery of what appeared to be a bullet hole in the front door heightened the urgency, making it clear to the officers that this wasn't a situation they could just knock and leave. After several minutes of knocking with no answer, the officers retrieved a key from the building's maintenance room. Unfortunately, even with the key, they were unable to unlock the door. At this point, detectives came to a chilling realization. The door was locked from the inside, likely dead-bolted, leaving no option but to break it down. They contacted the maintenance once more, and staff began drilling through the lock to grant them access. Meanwhile, the officers headed to the garage to check if Martell's car was still there. Sure enough, they found it, but it looked like the car hadn't been moved in several days. This only added to the concerns his family already had, given that they hadn't heard from him in days. Martell's silence had already been suspicious, but now it felt alarming. At this point, getting into that apartment became an urgent priority. It didn't take long for the maintenance team to finally unlock the door upstairs. And as soon as the officers made their way inside, their worst fear came true. Just a mere feet from the door, the lifeless body of a man lay sprawled on the floor. A dark, dried trail of blood snaked out from his head, painting a chilling picture of the final moments. Using the description provided by his stepmother, the officers quickly identified the victim as Martell Duran. He had died from a single gunshot wound to the forehead. Although the bullet appeared to have originated from outside, the crime scene told a different story, one of a violent confrontation that had unfolded within the apartment. The space was in chaos. Dishes lay shattered, furniture was overturned, and the bedroom was a mess. Further investigation revealed something startling. It seemed Martell had been involved in a struggle with a woman, as women's clothing, purses, and even a broken acrylic fingernail were found scattered throughout the apartment. While this seemed like a clue, the shocking revelations were just beginning. In the closet, detectives discovered an empty gun box. The contents suggested it had once held a 9mm semi-automatic pistol, but the gun was now missing. Then it hit the officers. Martell had likely been shot with his own weapon. This raised a disturbing possibility. Whoever had killed him knew him well enough to find and use the gun. Before the officers could make further progress in the investigation, they had to wait for the homicide detectives and the forensic team. While they were waiting, unexpectedly, someone showed up asking for Martell, someone they hadn't anticipated at all.
Hi, ma'am. Are you related to him?
You guys able to get in?
Yes, ma'am. There's some officers up there, but it's best if you just stay down here right now. I'm gonna go talk to the office. Okay?
So we can't go up there?
Not right now.
All right. So, first things first. There's a big bullet hole in the door. Ain't nobody hear that? nobody heard a gunshot? Because I haven't heard of a report of a gunshot, right? We only heard, I guess, a family member from out of state calling, saying that they haven't heard from him in a couple of days. They haven't mentioned that they, that somebody reported a gunshot. And I also find it very weird. She comes on the scene and she's supposedly his wife, but you like, oh, have y'all was able to get in there yet? You don't even really even seem that concerned or anything about this guy. Like you wasn't even the one who made the initial phone call about his whereabouts, but you're supposed to be his wife. Like, what's going on here? Like, she's lucky that they're just only telling her to just stay down while they're still investigating. I would have pulled her to the side, like, where you been? Excuse me, let's go on.
It turned out that the woman was not a random stranger, but Martel's estranged wife, Joya DeRuin, who lived nearby. She explained that she had come to check on him after not hearing from him for a few days. However, since the officers did not allow her to go upstairs, she immediately had a bad feeling that something terrible had occurred. It didn't take long for her to call Martel's parents and inform them of the situation.
Is there anything that you can tell us, please?
I can't tell you anything, man. I can't tell you anything yet.
I'm sorry. I didn't know I was muted. I'm just saying that she doesn't seem concerned even now. You hear family members screaming in the background, and she's not even showing any emotions with that. Not a tear. She's not going over to comfort them, or to seek comfort. She's sitting there acting like, she got locked out of her car. That's how she's acting. She's acting like she got locked outside of her car. Am I still unmuted? Can you guys hear me? Put a 1 in the chat if you hear me. Just to make sure. Sorry, I was muted. She just doesn't seem concerned to me. She really doesn't at all. Even now, all this hysterical, crying, all that stuff in the background. And she's acting like she got locked out of her car and she's waiting for XXX. That's how she's acting. She's not acting like your loved one, your husband, was just found in a horrible state. It's crazy. Okay, let's go on. Sorry about that, guys.
He can't tell me anything right now. He says I have to wait for a detective. Martel.
When's the last time you spoke to him?
I spoke to him on Friday.
Friday?
Text message.
Okay.
And then Thursday, he came over to do his hair at my apartment. I live by the dentist.
Okay. So Friday you weren't here, nobody was here, then you didn't come visit him, right?
I don't know who was here. I know he was working with people and doing music.
Okay. Okay.
Eager to piece together Martel's whereabouts, the officers began by asking Joya a few questions, as she was already present at the scene. Detectives were already suspicious of Joya, given her unexpected arrival at the scene. Her presence only raised more questions, and with growing suspicions, they decided to formally question her at the police station. As they escorted her away, the investigation continued to unfold with increasing complexity. The detectives canvassed the apartment complex, hoping to find any additional clues. Their worries deepened when they spoke to the neighbors. One, in particular, revealed crucial information that changed the direction of the investigation. Martel's downstairs neighbor, a woman who had become accustomed to the frequent arguments emanating from his apartment, had grown increasingly frustrated by the noise. On January 22, 2021, the very night Martel's family had last heard from him, the shouting had escalated once again. But this time, the neighbor had done something that was both shocking and, in a way, a blessing in disguise. Desperate to prove her case to the management, she had secretly recorded the heated
I
argument.
knew she recorded it.
Don't see anything though. She has it pointed kind of up toward the ceiling, and you hear two people arguing, a male and a female. They're arguing about, but you do hear yelling and screaming back and forth between two individuals.
While the recording didn't provide any direct evidence of a murder, it did confirm that a woman was in Martel's apartment on the day detectives believed he was killed. However, what the next neighbor shared took the investigation in an even more shocking direction. This neighbor, who lived directly across the hall from Martel, was at home that evening waiting for her food delivery. Suddenly, she heard loud banging noises outside her door. Thinking it was her delivery, she opened the door, but what she saw was far from expected. She came face to face with a skinny African-American woman standing outside of Martel's apartment.
Similar voice.
So I remember hearing knocking, and so I opened the door, and that's when I saw the girl that I've seen maybe about 2 or 3 times, and she was just banging and banging and banging on his door. And I guess I was kind of taken aback because I wasn't sure exactly what was going on, because she was barefoot and she had nothing in her hands, and she just looked a little bit out of it, facial expression wise.
Okay.
So I immediately just apologized for opening the door, because I didn't mean to interrupt whatever was happening, because I figured if she was banging on his door, it's probably not good.
Yeah.
The neighbor's description not only matched Joya's appearance accurately, but it also made sense that a separated couple might have frequent arguments. However, to determine if Joya was truly behind her husband's murder, detectives needed to thoroughly examine her story. They began by asking about the nature of their relationship.
And what
Listen, I understand people separate and stuff like that, but I agree, Miss Jalen. Why wasn't the police called? Why the only time that they are going over here to do this wellness check is after a family member realized that they haven't been in touch with him for more than 3 to 4 days? And then on top of that too is the way how she, I'm sorry, I don't know. And excuse me if this is my bias, but the way how she just rolled up on the scene when the police came there and she started questioning them about, was you able to get into the door yet? That was a red flag to me. I don't know if it was a red flag to anybody else, but that was just a red flag to me, because she rolled up there as in, did you find anything? Not necessarily, oh my God, why are you at my house? Did something happen? Where is this happening from? Is everything okay? She wasn't asking questions what normal people who don't know what's going on would ask, right? And then on top of that, she wasn't the first person to put out a wellness check to see if anything was happening to him. I haven't heard any reports of, did she contact the managers, department managers, to see if they can get in contact with him, maintenance to see if they can open up the door. There's so many things that happened between those 3 days that we're not hearing that she did anything, and she supposedly is supposed to be the wife, right? She's supposedly, the simple fact that somebody from outside of state had to call about his whereabouts. I'm sorry, everything's pointing to you. I'm sorry, mama. Everything's pointing to you about, what's going on. And then your performance on the sidewalk being very nonchalant and not acting like you're even upset that something has happened to him. Let's go on. Let's see what she has to say for herself.
What kind of relationship or marriage did you guys have?
It was great. We had a lot in common. We both loved music. I did a little music as well and things like that. Towards the end, I would say the last 2 years is kind of when it got rocky. I don't know, sometimes they can get a little mean and stuff.
Joya admitted that before their separation, things between them had gotten heated. However, the reason for their conflicts, she stated, was even more concerning. It was Martel's own lifestyle.
With the music stuff, I really didn't like some of the people that he worked with. Kind of shady. You know, a lot of times what happens is people get in beefs about music and then they use flash and stuff, which I told him not, don't do that. He did purchase a gun, and I told him that when we were together, I never wanted a gun in the house.
What type of gun was it?
It wasn't just like a handgun. I don't know. And the one thing that I told him is like, don't be showing it on Instagram. Don't be doing all that flashy stuff.
Did he do any of that stuff on Instagram?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Although Joya remained their prime suspect, her point held some validity. As a rap star, Martel's lifestyle often involved flashy displays and bragging, which could have made him a target for people with ulterior motive.
Did he flash money a lot on Instagram, or?
He may have, but I know one thing that he did was he liked a lot of jewelry.
Okay. Obviously he's flashing, he's doing some of that stuff on Instagram.
He's always been flashy and cocky.
And cocky.
In addition to posting pictures with guns and expensive items on Instagram, Martel had other ways of flaunting his street life. Some of his lyrics included themes of violence and death, which was especially concerning given the troubling number of tragic murders within the rap community over the years. However, before detectives could focus more on the robbery theory, one shocking piece of evidence brought their attention right back to Joya. While reviewing the list of 9/11 calls from January 22, 2021, detectives made a startling discovery. On that day, there was a call for a welfare check, and it came from none other than Joya. This was a call Joya had not yet mentioned to the detectives.
I need police now.
Okay, and your name?
My name is Joya Duran.
Okay, and what's going on?
I'm trying to get in my apartment, but I'm not able to get in. And I feel like I'm just not able to get in, and I think my husband is injured.
Spell the first name?
Joya, Joia.
Okay, and your husband's name?
Martel.
Last name?
Deron, Deroun.
Your husband's hurt?
Yes.
Do you hear him?
No, he's not responding, and I called him, and he's just not responding. And there's a hole in his door, and I don't know what's going on, honestly.
There's a hole in the door?
Yes.
Detectives were stunned to realize there had been an opportunity to check on Martel earlier, possibly right after the incident. This new revelation raised even more questions.
Hi, Miss
What was
Country. How
Joya
you
trying to
doing?
hide? And more importantly, what had kept the police from acting on that concerning 911 call? It turned out the address Joya had given them wasn't Martel's apartment at all. In fact, when officers responded to the call, they arrived at a building that wasn't even finished yet. And that wasn't the only odd thing about Joya. She had also misspelled both her first and last name. As detectives tried to figure out why Joya had given them the
Oh, she got, I'm sorry, she got some cojones on her. She got some serious cojones. Man, when a woman is fed up, there ain't nothing you can do about it. Ain't that the song? Like, she called, but she misspelled her name wrong, so they couldn't necessarily track her, right? Then she called and said all that, but gave a different address. So that is why there's no report of him being that wellness check being actually done for him those days, because she gave them a wrong address. So if the cops went out there to the other address and they don't see the bullet hole or the bullet through the door and nothing like that, they're gonna leave. They're gonna be like, all right, we did the wellness check, we don't see anything, and okay, we got this person number. Maybe they was playing around with 911, but guess what? They couldn't link it to her because her name, her last name, and her first name was spelled was spelled incorrectly. She got some big cojones, man. She really do. She planned that out very good. She literally sent them another way, but then tried to use the alibi that she was doing a wellness check on her husband days prior. That's crazy. Wow.
Wrong address and botched her own name, their next shocking discovery provided a crucial clue. One of the neighbors in the apartment complex had a Ring camera outside his door. What the camera captured on the evening of January 22nd was nothing short of astonishing. Just before the 911 call came in, the camera recorded a loud pop, likely a gunshot. A few moments later, it captured a skinny African-American woman walking down the corridor, holding a cell phone in one hand and a gun in the other.
You know, Chris, I'm not saying that people don't make mistakes, but this is his wife. And it's been confirmed by not one, but two neighbors that she was in that house and that they had an altercation that Friday or that week of that Friday where no response or any calls came from the victim, right? So she know doggone well where this man lives. And she said that she doesn't live that far. So I couldn't even give her that excuse, you know. I would probably understand it from the family members who was calling down to the police department down there for them to do the wellness check. They might get the address wrong, but not her. She was just there a couple of days ago. So she purposely gave them the wrong address, and she also purposely gave them the wrong spelling of both her first and last name. I mean, out of anything that you can misspell, your name should be something that you shouldn't be misspelling, right? You know, we all went to school to learn how to spell our names. So let's go on. But shout out to you, Chris. Thank you for stopping by.
However, the most shocking part was that the woman in the footage wasn't Joya. It was someone else entirely. Confused, detectives reached out to Joya, who was still in the interrogation room, hoping she might recognize the woman. And much to their relief, she did.
Do you remember any of the people that you kind of hung out with during that rap group?
No, I only know of one person, and that was the girl I sent the picture to, the detective.
What's that girl's name?
It's Sasha.
Is it S-H-A?
Mm-hmm. Last name Skare, S-K-A-R-E.
S-K-A-R-E. Let me see. So this is her?
That's her.
21-year-old Sasha Skare was an aspiring and talented musician who had recently spent a great deal of time with Martel, even appearing in several of his music videos.
Sasha, she had a lot of potential you can see from her shows. She checked all the boxes, you know, as far as the music, the talent, the persona. She was pretty much the whole package.
Her presence in Martel's life, however, seemed to be more than just professional collaboration. They had a much more intimate relationship.
And I believe that's who he was currently seeing now, since we've been separated.
So why do you believe that he was seeing her?
She messaged me on Instagram, just kind of alluding to the fact that she wanted to ask me about the relationship that we had with him. And I was like, you know, what can I help you with? And then she never said anything after that. But I guess she was wanting to find out, why we separated, or, you know.
If there was any sort of kind of feelings between y'all two.
Exactly. And the reason I say that about the Instagram is because there's pictures of her at his place, sitting on his car and, you know, just different things like that.
Joya shared that even though she and Martel were no longer together, they maintained a friendly relationship and were open with each other. Because of this, Martel didn't hesitate to tell her about his romantic involvement with Sasha. He also opened up about how his relationship with Sasha was pretty unstable. Martel felt disrespected by Sasha repeatedly, especially when she invited people over to his house and did things on his property without his permission. Joya backed up her story with some angry text messages Martel had sent to Sasha. However, she also mentioned how Martel was always willing to support Sasha in building her career. Little did he know, a grim fate was already closing in on him.
In the beginning, it was more of a teacher-student type relationship where he was trying to develop her music and all that stuff like that.
I agree, Julian. I do believe that she is trying to frame this girl, right? she's trying to frame this girl that this girl was upset or jealous that he could be still dealing with his wife that he's separated with, and that they had a lot going on with each other. They're, the music industry connection, collaboration, and stuff like that. Yeah, that's what I'm getting from it. I'm getting from it that she's trying to say that maybe she could have done it, but so far, the video shows you walking in the hallway. The neighbors recorded you screaming with the guy. Also the other neighbor confirmed that, you was the one who walked out the house when she went to go get her food and stuff, and she didn't want to seem like you was all in her business. So, I mean, at this point, they have not put Sasha in the middle of this at all, right? It's only been you so far. So, I mean, that's the route that she's taking, but I don't think it's going to work. The more evidence and things that play out, I don't necessarily think it's going to work. But let's go on. And I also think that she probably might thought that she was going to get away with it, because obviously you can see that this guy has a particular type of taste in women. Sasha and his wife does not look that different from each other, right? They're very similar in frame, very slim women. They have hair, curly. One is wearing curly locks. The other one has more loose curls. Very similar in complexion. I think that that's another reason why she thought that, it's easy to say that it could have been her, right? Especially if the cameras or anything that they caught, she didn't think that they was going to be able to identify her very clearly. So let's go on.
Was she like a singer, or was she just like some kind of like a promoter?
I believe she was trying to be a promoter, but she did do music as well. She had a couple of songs that she came over and did.
Did he ever confide in you his relationship with her?
He would just tell me that, I want to, continue working with her and doing the music and stuff like that.
And it was very telling. He explained to her he was upset because she was bringing other men around. He didn't like that. And he had asked her to stop, but she kept doing it. And he confronted her about it. And we think that's what started this big fight between the two of them.
Based on the text messages, detectives pieced together what likely happened between Sasha and Martel on January 22nd, 2021. They believe that on that day, Sasha and Martel had a heated argument that escalated. At some point, Sasha managed to grab his gun and left his apartment, but Martel locked the door behind her. She left her belongings inside, which is why she was banging on the door, trying to get back in. Meanwhile, Martel told her that she needed to get his gun to retrieve her things.
He tells her, I had to defend myself. You attacked me, I had to get you out of here. But you need to bring my gun back.
But unfortunately, the argument escalated to a point where Sasha shot him through the door, ultimately ending his life.
Her opportunity there is to leave or call 911, but she didn't do that. Instead she fired a gun into the door while he's standing on the other side and then fled. Sasha Scar was our suspect and we needed to find her.
Meanwhile, detectives discovered more evidence that shed light on the situation.
The autopsy was performed on Mr. DeRuin. A projectile was recovered from Martel and was confirmed to be a 9mm, which is the same caliber as the gun that was missing from Martel's apartment.
Convinced that Sasha was the only one responsible for Martel's death, detectives obtained an arrest warrant but quickly hit another roadblock. When they tracked down Sasha's address and arrived to arrest her, she was nowhere to be found. It didn't take long for them to realize Sasha was on the run. Time was running out, and with every passing moment, Sasha was slipping further from their grasp.
So I stand corrected. Nothing but the truth said, or the girl could have done it and try to frame the wife, especially since she misspelled her name. You know what? It seemed like that's the case. It seemed like it was the case. It's the case of the crazy side chick. Let's go on.
The investigation had taken a dangerous turn, as with the gun in her possession, she could potentially hurt someone else too.
So I get in touch with the U.S. Marshal Service, who then starts their manhunt. So we're actively now searching for Sasha with an active warrant for murder.
As the police frantically searched for Sasha's whereabouts, another shocking twist came to light. This wasn't her first violent offense. In November 2019, Sasha was involved in a botched drug deal that resulted in the death of her then-boyfriend, Andrew Bass. She was charged with aggravated robbery and assault with a deadly weapon and was out on bond when Martell was killed. The case grabbed major media attention, especially since Martell was the cousin of global superstar Beyoncé. This only added to the pressure on the investigators to find answers. For 2 long weeks, Sasha had remained under the radar, evading capture. But eventually, she made a choice that stunned everyone. She turned herself in. In her words, it was because she wanted to face the situation head on.
After I seen the news and everybody telling me, you're wanted, I realized that I was wanted for murder. I called my lawyer, and my lawyer just walked me through, like, as far as the process would go. Just run away from everything. Like, I have to deal with this because I have a family.
After charging her with murder, I went to interview Sasha Scar at the jail. She seemed exhausted.
However, detectives were still eager to hear Sasha's side of the story. But when they went to speak with her inside the jail, she refused to cooperate.
Can you identify yourself, your full name, birthday for me?
Sasha Scar.
Thank you, ma'am. Can I just call you Sasha? Okay. Before we get started, Sasha, because you are here in custody, I need to advise you of your rights, okay? The reason I'm here is to give you an opportunity to give your side of the story of what happened, okay? You be willing to do that?
Not without my lawyer present.
Okay. I totally understand that part now, okay? I'm gonna go ahead and turn this off. Give me 1 second.
Although Sasha remained silent, the evidence spoke for itself. Detectives collected her DNA sample, which was later matched with the acrylic nail found at the scene. With this critical piece of evidence, Sasha was charged with premeditated first-degree murder, as detectives believed she had intentionally set out to kill Martell. Sasha Scar's trial began on August 23, 2023, more than 2 years after Martell was brutally murdered. Just before the trial, she had rejected a plea deal that would have given her a 20-year sentence. Now, with the trial underway, the stakes were much higher. If convicted, she faced the maximum penalty, which was life imprisonment. Sasha took the stand in her own defense, claiming that the two had gotten into a fight while she was on the phone with a videographer. She said that Martell became furious when he saw her talking to another man. According to Sasha, when he started hitting her, she fought back, trying to get him off of her.
Yep.
She claimed that when she finally managed to break free, her first instinct was to grab the gun.
After you grabbed the weapon, the gun, what happened next?
I told him, don't touch me. I started backing up out of the bedroom. When I backed up out of the bedroom, he started following me. I started grabbing dishes out of the cabinets and throwing it in between us.
Sasha further testified that after running out the door with the gun, she realized her belongings were still inside and decided to go back to retrieve them.
Yeah, I agree, Barry. She should have just took the deal, but she thought that she was gonna get off on a self-defense, right? And you can see that while she's on trial now, she wanted to face this head on. She doesn't feel like she did anything wrong. She doesn't feel like she could have took a different option. If he was getting aggressive with you and you felt uncomfortable, you should have left the house. You don't stay there and argue with him and get him to the point where he can put his hands on you. And you know, there's so many things, levels to this, right? But it's not self-defense if you didn't call 911 after you did it. You dipped, got caught on in the camera, talking on your phone or whoever you was talking to. You let that man body decompose for 3 to 4 days before he was actually found. That ain't self-defense no more, boo-boo. You shot him. It was no longer for you to be afraid. You left him in that state because you left him in that state because you didn't care anymore. And that's what you wanted to do. That's exactly what you wanted to do. You know, you didn't want to save him. You could have, if it was self-defense, you could have shot him. And if he was still breathing, you could have called 911, let everybody come in, scoop in, get the interview going and all that stuff like that. But you didn't do that. You went riding into the sunset thinking like, oh, well, he's a rapper. He talk a lot of stuff online. He's always waving his money and stuff around. They're going to think that this is a robbery, or they're going to think that it was a rap beef that went bad. And you led with that, and you thought that you was going to go, you wasn't going to be brung into this. You knew everything that you was doing. I don't buy it, and I bet you the judge in them is not going to buy it either. So she probably most likely is going to get life in prison. But let's go on.
She claimed that while banging on the locked apartment door with the gun in hand, it accidentally went off, resulting in Martel's death.
And did you know he was standing behind the door?
No, sir, I didn't.
After the gun goes off, what happened next?
That's when I ended up calling the police.
However, she still had to explain why she called 911, pretending to be Martel's wife instead of giving her own name.
Why did you give a false name in the 911?
At that time, I really wasn't in the right mind, and I'm not really used to calling the police, so I felt like since that was his wife, I just felt like I should, I guess, present myself as her.
Sasha claimed that she had disposed of the gun in a nearby dumpster, but when police searched all the nearby dumpsters, they didn't find it. Although none of Sasha's explanations held up to scrutiny by the prosecution, she remained adamant that she never intended to kill Martel DeRuin.
Miss Carter, when you fired that shot, did you know Martel was behind that door?
No, sir, I didn't.
Did you mean to hurt Martel?
Not at all.
Tell the jury, what was your intent when that gun fired?
I guess my intent was just to get his attention.
So when he wanted you to leave, why not just get out?
Because not only was I intoxicated, he had brought me there, and that was the second time he had did the same thing, as far as bringing me to his place and then all of a sudden just asking me to leave.
Contrary to Sasha's claims of Martel being an abusive man, his family members, including his estranged wife Joya, testified that Martel had never been physically violent with any of them. In their closing statement, the prosecution argued that Sasha's version of events didn't align with much of the evidence found at the scene.
They have her demonstrate how the gun went off. But if you look at the door from Martel's apartment, the bullet hole is directly straight into the doorway. And so that just doesn't line up forensically. She had said she jumped over a counter. The prosecutors took a photo on the counter. It's not a very big counter, our bowls. He's like, how did none of these bowls move?
Eventually, after just over 2 hours of deliberations, the jury found Sasha Scar guilty of all charges. Before sentencing, under Texas law, the jury was required to hear from the victim's family members to help determine the appropriate punishment. One by one, Martel's family members shared their heart-wrenching pain and how his death had profoundly impacted their lives, making the courtroom filled with emotion.
Well, I can't. Every day is very hard. I haven't slept in a very long time. It's just, as a mother, to lose a son and to lose him that way, it's unimaginable, and I wouldn't wish that on anybody, nobody, ever.
I do have some type of hurt in my heart, because I feel like if we would have never broken up, this would have never happened.
Sasha, the pain and agony that you brought upon my family is unbearable. You deserve every single consequence that you caused from your own actions.
Ultimately, on September 1st, 2023, 24-year-old Sasha Scar was sentenced to 55 years in prison. She will be eligible for parole in 2048. Despite her conviction, Sasha continues to maintain that she never intended to kill Martel.
I didn't intend to actually shoot him and kill him, you know. Cause, you know, he was my friend. Why would you want that to happen to somebody you were close with?
Before we conclude, we extend our deepest condolences to Martel's loved ones. To the music industry, his death was a significant loss, a loss of someone who, despite being related to a global superstar, never sought to boast about it and was determined to make it big on his own. But for his family, the loss was even greater, as they now face a life without him, one that can never return to what it once was.
We still grieve over him every day. We always celebrate his birthday as if he was still here. We'll go visit him.
The only solace is that although he is gone, his music will live on forever. What could have happened inside the apartment that day? Do you believe Sasha's claims of it being an accident, or do you think she had a more sinister motive? We'd love to hear your opinions in the comments below. If you have any cases you'd like us to cover, feel free to leave your suggestions. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Mysterious 7.
Oh, okay. So that one was deep. I remember hearing about a family member of Beyonce's being murdered. I didn't know exactly what was the detail from that, right? But it's sad that, first of all, she's an idiot, right? She could have took the plea deal, 20 years, whatever not, but she felt that she was right in whatever she did, and that's the reason why. And I don't buy this whole I never thought about unaliving him. Yes, you did, because even when you was arguing and everything got all, you know, technical, it was at one point that he did, you know, stop arguing or putting his hands on you, and you did not leave the house. In fact, when he put you out the first time, you came back to the house to continue to argue with him. That's how the neighbors was able to get that yelling recording, right? And then you like I said, you're in there, you're scruffling with him. You said as soon as he let you go, the first thing that you thought was to go get the gun. So you already knew where he had the gun at. You purposely went and got the gun. You purposely loaded the gun, and you purposely shot him. And then you try to say that you try to jump to shoot him. No, the hell you did not. You don't have to jump to shoot him. The way how the bullet hole trajectory is, it was like straight point blank. You knew exactly where you was trying to hit at, right? So there's just too much evidence to show that you did everything but just do the right thing and get out of that situation if you were actually the victim. And it's unfortunate when we get into these type of cases where you have people who do things to victims and you try to shame them even after death. And this is not only just for men, this is for women too. When I hate when you have people who harm individuals and you try to shame them after death. You try to destroy their reputation when they're not here. Like, that's just some very shameful thing to do, right? Because he wasn't an abuser, but you're trying to make him seem like he was an abuser. And he told you to leave his house. So that means he knew that a confrontation was happening and he didn't want to go there with you. So those are signs of somebody who was doing the right thing, and you trying to paint him as somebody who was roughing you up or something like that. That's really sad. It's really, really sad. We got to stop doing that. Stop trying to destroy people's their character and stuff like that while they're alive and while they're no longer with us. It's very poor taste. Very, very poor taste indeed. All right, so the last case I have for you guys, and then I'm gonna head out because I gotta get on the road. Make sure you're hitting the like button. Comment later on once the live stream is over. Put in other cases that you would like me to review. Like I said, I do have my list of the few of the ones that y'all told me to review, and I'm gonna be working on that for you guys. And share this out to anybody who likes these type of cases. Okay, I appreciate y'all rocking out with me for so far. All right. So the next one is, there was a crazy girlfriend. I'm trying not to curse, but this crazy ex-girlfriend, it seemed like she unalived somebody for love, preferably maybe her boyfriend. So we're going to look at this one and see how this goes. And shout out to everybody that's coming in. Khadijah, how you doing, ma'am? Thank you so much. I appreciate you. And again, Roy's Problem Child, thank you for stopping by. I appreciate you. KJ, good to see you. Thank you for stopping by again. All right. And let's see. Oh, Sean Abbott, thank you so much for stopping by. Shout out to Ireland. Thank you so much. All right. Here we go.
Hospital. On her way, she repeatedly requested that officers contact a man named Jason Mangle for her. She stated that this was another ex-boyfriend who she would like by her side during this whole ordeal. While some officers waited alongside Ezra, other officers were dispatched to search the area surrounding Dawn's farm for any sign of Alex. They also tried to phone Alex, check his residence, and contact his parents.
Zara,
Alex
think about
was
that.
nowhere in
That's a good idea.
sight.
Thank you.
Because of this, officers decided to question Ezra even more while she was at the hospital. At first, she was too emotional to answer any questions, but she eventually regained her composure.
I don't know. I'm trying so hard, man, trying to get things to come in, but it's just like it keeps getting blocked out and blocked out.
Ezra kept up this story for the rest of the evening and into the next morning. Basically, she continued to state that she only had glimpses of memories going through her mind. These glimpses were of Alex attacking her. She stuck to these claims until later that morning. When officers returned to the location surrounding Dawn Sippel's property, they passed by another property that was gated that appeared to have footprints leading quite a ways down a dirt path. The officers decided to step out of their vehicle and walk down this dirt path. They then discovered Alex's body hanging partially out of Ezra's car, covered in blood and stab marks. Within moments of observing the body, officers knew that this story was going to get messy.
A lot of stuff.
As Ezra lay in the hospital, officers do some research into both Alex and Ezra's history. So, before we go any further, we need to go back about 10 months earlier. Ezra McCandless met a man named Jason Mangle at the beginning of 2017. He was 13 years older and served as a medic on the military reserve. Despite the age gap, the two hit it off as they were both what they considered free souls, and they were both also very spontaneous. They moved in together after dating for just over a month. They then became nearly inseparable, doing everything together other than when they had personal responsibilities or work. They had one specific location, which they frequented on a regular basis. This location was the two's favorite little coffee shop, Racy's Coffee Shop, located in downtown Eau Claire. It was during the 8 months following Ezra's move into Jason's apartment that the two became regulars of this coffee shop. During this time, they met a young man at a bar named Alex Woodworth. Coincidentally, Alex worked at the coffee shop and lived only a couple blocks away from it. He was known to be very chatty, nerdy, and very into philosophy. He was also a frequent churchgoer who loved to help others, be it animals or people. When Jason, Ezra, and Alex crossed paths, the three instantly hit it off. Alex and Jason became very close friends. Meanwhile, Ezra and Alex became a little bit more than that. As Ezra maintained her relationship with Jason, she also kept up a secret relationship with Alex. The two would spend time together every time that Jason had to leave for his military work, and their relationship went from what can be described as vanilla to experimental BDSM very quickly. However, this entanglement could only go on for so long before Jason found out and confronted both Alex and Ezra. Jason and Alex remained friends while Ezra decided to break it off with both men, though she was in no rush to move out of Jason's apartment. This takes us to March 1st, 2018. Just 3 weeks before the discovery of Alex's body. On this day, Jason was arriving home from a 2-week military training exercise when he came upon a frantic and emotional Ezra. Ezra was crying profusely and
So it seems like she didn't want to get over a relationship and she didn't want to move out the house. She, even though he might have been over it, she wasn't over it. This is what is looking like right now. I'll just say this, ladies and men, do not force nobody to be with you who don't want you. Just a heads up. Once they give you the sign that they do not want you, you need to just pick up your stuff and go. Do not force nobody to be with you, okay? Because even if they decide to outweigh the options and say, hey, you know, I benefit a lot for being with this person, they're going to resent you the whole entire time. You're not going to get that spark anymore. You're not going to get that tingling feeling anymore. It's not going to happen, right? They're going to resent you for forcing them to be with you or putting them in a position where they need you, and that's why they're rocking out with you. So just don't do it. Just, you know, just leave, please.
Could barely speak. Ezra stated that while Jason was away, she went drinking with one of Jason's friends. During that night, this friend assaulted Ezra, taking advantage of her as soon as they both started to feel drunk. She stated that at some point, she realized that she drank far too much and started drifting in and out of consciousness. She then felt herself being carried up to a bed before blacking out entirely. She said that she felt very emotional regarding the entire issue, but was too scared of how Jason would react. So before telling Jason, she decided to contact Alex to speak with him about it first. So on another evening, she went to Alex's house to vent about this horrible encounter, in which time, apparently, Alex tried to make a move on her. This time, she felt that she was being taken advantage of, mainly due to her emotional state. She then stormed out and went home. Upon hearing all of this, Jason was infuriated. Although he and Ezra had already broken up, Ezra was still living with him, and he felt that they were still close. So, when he heard that his friends had done this, he immediately drove both himself and Ezra to the police to file a report. Ezra had taken part in an interview regarding this encounter.
Started getting really tipsy. He kept telling me to be quiet, like she kept shushing me. It's really scary. Okay.
An investigation began into the claims made by Ezra. During this investigation, officers went through Ezra's phone and text message history and spoke to both Jason and Alex. While sifting through Ezra's messages, officers found text messages between Ezra and this other friend that appeared as though Ezra may have been fairly suggestive with him. They had also found past messages which alluded to a previous sexual encounter between the two. This created some doubt surrounding Ezra's allegations. When the officers spoke to Jason, they confronted him with the information that they had uncovered, and Jason admitted that he was aware that the two had slept together in the past, but based on Ezra's story, he felt that this time was different. When the officer spoke to Alex, Alex went on to claim that Ezra had admitted to him that the encounter with the other guy was totally consensual. However, she regretted it the minute that she left and decided to spin the narrative. After speaking with Alex, officers expressed to Ezra what they had learned and decided that they had no grounds to make any arrests or press any charges, and the investigation was dropped.
Okay, so that puts a lot of stuff in perspective. So this is some cheating woman who had consensual sex, but then she tried to play it off that it wasn't consensual. And then when the guy came clean and said, no, it was consensual and we all knew about it, and she admitted to me that she regretted it and that she would never do it again. And that case that she wanted to get on that said individual didn't go nowhere. Now we have motive. Now we have motive. She could be angry that the fact that they made it seem like she was lying, that she was sexually assaulted when it was actually a consensual casual sex. Lady, you can't be out here acting crazy when you out here doing dirt now. Like, come on now. You can't play victim when you out here playing dirt.
Obviously, Ezra became fairly upset with Alex following his interview with the police, as now she felt that Jason would only think that she was a liar and a manipulator trying to trick him into getting back with her, which turned out to be a fairly precise assumption, as within the week following the case being dropped, Jason insisted that Ezra move out as he was tired of the mind games and constant stress. So Ezra did just that. She moved out of Eau Claire and back into her parents' house, which also brings us back to March 22nd, 2018, the same day that Ezra showed up on Dawn Sippel's doorstep. During the day, Jason was relaxing at Racy's, drinking a cup of joe and browsing the internet, when all of a sudden, Ezra appears in the coffee shop. Jason is caught off guard, as he was not expecting to see her so soon following the move. But Ezra appeared to have other plans in mind. Jason also notices that Ezra has a scary look in her eye, so he approaches her and says, "Hey, what are you doing here?" Ezra replies, "Oh, I'm just here to see Alex. We're going to hang out and talk about things, and I just want to show him some art that I've done, and that I'm back to being my old self." She then leaves, hops in her car, and drives over to Alex's house. At this point, Jason is growing increasingly concerned, as he was aware just how upset Ezra was with Alex less than 2 weeks prior. He also felt that her demeanor was very intense. So as Ezra headed on her way to Alex, Jason decided that he should hop on his bike and ride over to Alex's himself to monitor the situation from a distance. In an unlucky turn of events, a janitor witnessed Jason riding his bike around Alex's building and felt that he looked suspicious, so he called 911. Officers quickly arrived on the scene, which gives us an inside look into exactly what happened during those moments.
You said they saw you park your bike over here?
Yeah.
And then walk over there, look around in that car. Do you know that person that lives there?
It's my girlfriend's car, or my ex-girlfriend. We were kind of in a situation, and when she talked to me this morning, I was worried because the guy that lives there is involved in an assault case that she's with. Or
she's the victim of?
She's the victim of an assault that happened, and when she went to him for consolement, I was gone on military orders.
Okay.
She went to him to talk to him about stuff, and then he kind of took advantage of her too, and she wanted to talk to him, I think today, about some stuff, and I was paranoid because she had like fire in her eyes.
Okay.
So
Who's the girlfriend?
Ezra McCandless.
Okay.
I was just worried because, like...
Was the door standing open over there when you got there on the car?
I knocked like 3 times. I didn't hear anything. I didn't hear a scuffle or anything, so... Knocked, yelled, opened the door, and I heard her say, "Let him help you. Let him help you." So then I said, "Hey, is everything okay? Is everyone all right now?" I mean, I'm a medic in the military, so, like, I was paranoid. I was paranoid that someone was going to do something irrational.
Okay. And they're in the house on the corner here, or?
Yeah, they're on. I think they're fine, though. I mean, I don't know. I'm just.
I just saw the door to the car was standing open too.
I wanted to turn her car off. Her car was running, so that's why I was like worried because it was running, and I was like, okay, what's going on? Like, what's going on? Is everything okay?
Me too.
Do you have any ID with you?
Yeah. I don't think he's dangerous, but I don't know.
Do you know what his name is?
Alex Woodsworth.
Okay.
I think it's Woodsworth or Woodsworth.
Okay. You can go over by your bike. Hi.
Yeah, I'm getting suspense about it, and it's because now it's starting to make very sense. Like, you got this new boyfriend, he's in the military, you know, he makes good money. You trying to get to wifey status with the military benefits and all, but you have to, you have to cover the simple fact that you was out here creeping and to make yourself look like a victim. So you can still be in this relationship with this guy. So you try to pin that this guy took advantage of you. And when you was going through your feelings and your emotions while he was away on deployment and stuff. And since that didn't fall through and it made it look like you're a liar, now I see why you might have you have a motive to want to take your anger out on him. Yeah, and that's what it's looking like. But let's go on. Let's see what else she does.
Is everything okay here? Yeah. Okay. Somebody called us kind of worried because they saw Jason come over here and he was going in the car and they weren't sure what was going on.
No, everything's fine.
Everything's fine? Okay. Do you guys have any ID with you? I got to write a report here that I came over and talked with you guys. They were just a little worried because they saw the car running over here and they weren't sure what was going on and all that jazz.
Sorry for all this,
It's okay. It's okay. I'd rather come here and check and it be nothing than have something bad happening.
The officers feel that the situation warrants no further police involvement, so after checking everybody's identification, the officers head on their way. The eeriest part of this footage is that Jason can be seen entering the frame and having his final conversation with Alex before the second police cruiser drives off. This is the last moment that Alex Woodworth was seen alive. Less than 24 hours later, as Ezra McCandless lay in a hospital bed, officers had just discovered Alex's body, and so they now had more questions for Ezra. Conveniently, parts of Ezra's memories start to come back, and Ezra states that while Alex was driving, Alex pulled a knife on her and grabbed her left arm. He then used the knife to cut the word boy into it.
He started like carving something into my arm. He used to call me like boy a lot and stuff like that. And I was just kind of like, I don't really identify that way anymore.
Ezra told the officer that she used to strictly identify as a boy. And when Alex heard that she used to do so, he really latched on to that idea. Sometimes he would even get a bit pushy, asking her to continue doing so. The officers then looked over the wound on Ezra's arm and realized fairly quickly that the story wasn't adding up. She claimed that Alex was sitting in the driver's
Yeah, I don't buy it. I don't buy it because I'm sorry, the way how, and this is just with my eyes, the way how the boy is carved into her skin is self-inflicted. That's not, it would have been the other way. If he was carving it, he wouldn't carve it holding her arm like this to do that. No, that's not what's going to happen. If she's fighting with him to not, carve anything on her, it would have been upside down. The way how it looked is like she took a knife and she was just like this. That's how it looks self-inflicted. And then on top of that, if you thought that he was so dangerous, right? Because that's according to you having this case on him that he took advantage of you and you didn't want to have sex with him and it was sexual assault. Why were you comfortable to go meet up with him to talk about this after the case got thrown out? Obviously, you wasn't as scared of him as you led on to believe, because I'm not going to go talk to my abuser. I'm not going to go talk to my rapist. I'm not. What we need to speak about? The cops is involved. They got all the information. I did a rape kit, whatever. I don't know. I don't have to speak to you. Why do I want to speak to you? So she wasn't scared. But now she's acting like, oh, he was so dangerous and that you were scared and stuff like that, but you still hopped in the car with him to have a conversation and not even bring your military man with you. You didn't even want him there. You just told him, no, I just want to talk to him and I want to figure things out and squash everything. You didn't even want him there. So, again, come on now. Come on. Let's stop. But let's go on.
her seat while she was in the front passenger seat. He then used his right arm to grab her left arm and begin carving. If that was the case, it would only make sense that Ezra's arm was extended while Alex made these cuts. That would result in the word boy being flipped. Officers then confronted Ezra and asked if she made that injury to herself.
You didn't do that to you, did you?
Told you. Told you. Let's go on.
You carved a boy into your own arm. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Almost as if this confrontation rebooted her memory, Ezra is now full of details regarding what happened. She begins to tell her story, claiming that after the two pulled over in the field, they ended up in the back of the car. While hanging out in the back, Alex made a move on her. When Ezra did not reciprocate, Alex pulled out the knife.
He started cutting my pants open and stuff, and I didn't know what to do, and it was really scary. He just kept trying to attack me, and I didn't know what to do.
Okay.
And it was the scariest thing I've ever experienced in my life.
Ezra then stated that she grabbed the knife by its blade with extreme grip, managed to get the knife out of Alex's hand, and then did whatever she had to do to defend herself and get the hell out of there.
He kept trying to grab me in the back of the car, so I just started to defend myself as fast as I could.
You said you had the knife. Where were you cutting him?
I just was going anywhere and everywhere I could.
Okay.
He just kept grabbing me and grabbing me and grabbing me.
Ezra was eventually taken to the police station to finish providing her statement. at which time she detailed the entire sequence of events as she remembered them. Her story was starting to get a little bit twisted.
Where's the first place you think you stabbed him?
I think the first place I stabbed him was in the head.
Okay. Okay, and then walk me through the order you think you stabbed him.
I think I stabbed him in the head, and then he just kept grabbing me and grabbing me.
Okay.
So I think I stabbed him in like this leg by the genital region, and then the stomach and the sides and stuff like that. And then I remember stabbing in this region inside the chest and neck region, and then...
Was that outside the car?
That was inside the car. And then I fell, because my shoes fell off, because I was kicking and everything, and he got out of the car. And then he went to grab me again, and I stabbed him in like the side of the ribs and stuff. And then it's like after that I just couldn't breathe, and I just started breathing and breathing and breathing, and then it just got really dark and scary. And I woke up and I peed my pants and everything, and I didn't know what was going on, and he was just laying there, so I started running.
Okay. How come you didn't tell me this yesterday when we talked, Ezra?
Because I didn't, it's too scary.
I know it's scary, but we needed the truth, right?
So she's 100% lying. Look at her mannerisms, right? She cannot even face the detective. That shows a sign of guilt. And it's easy for her to just harp on about how afraid she was and how scared she was. And she's making sure to allude to that she was fearful for her life, that she was scared, that she was she was in danger. She was not in danger. You went looking for this man. You went to his house. You went to have a quote unquote conversation with him. You jumped in his car. And then now you're telling me that you stabbed him in the head. So if you stabbed him in the head, then you have full intent to unalive this man. You didn't want him to be alive. And then you said that you just kept on going. So I'm thinking that all the crazy wounds that he possibly had on him was once she was in a fit of rage when she did it, and she just kept on going and going and going and going. And if he was trying to like grab on you and stuff, of course, who wouldn't grab on you when you're stabbing them, right? When you're stabbing them and you're cutting them up, yes, I'm going to grab on you and try to get the weapon, right? So you're fighting with him with the weapon. That's why you have the cut wounds in your hands. But you could just tell that she's literally trying to play the self-defense part to this, that she never wanted this to happen. He took advances at her. She told him to stop, and that she had to she had to defend herself in this process. And I don't think none of that is true. I really don't. And you could tell because she can't even look the detective in his face while having a conversation. She literally has her head down and she's acting like she's crying. I was so scared and it was so dark and I peed my pants and I woke up and I just seen him like that and I just ran away. I'm not buying it, lady. I'm not buying it. Let's go on.
Right. See, it's better to come and tell us the truth so we know what happened.
Because it's just so scary and I can't get it out of my head.
No. And we're sorry that you went through this.
And it just keeps replaying and replaying and replaying. I wish it would go away.
Well, have you talked to any of the doctors about this? What happened?
No.
Okay, well, that's probably going to be a good place to talk. Okay. When you were stabbing him, were you trying to kill him?
I just wanted him to go away.
Okay.
I wouldn't go away.
Crime scene analysts quickly determined how they believed the altercation took place, based on the evidence found at the crime scene. The first thing to note is that the majority of blood was found on the ground outside of the vehicle, which contradicts everything that Ezra states happened inside the vehicle. They also found that Alex had 0 defensive wounds, making it appear as though he was caught off guard entirely when he was stabbed. The amount of wounds found on Alex was also quite excessive. as not only was he stabbed upwards of 15 times, he was also discovered with his genitalia severely mutilated. Another big problem was that Ezra claimed that she grabbed the knife by the blade during Alex's attack and managed to muscle it out of his hands. However, the wounds on Ezra's hands were only superficial, which told the officers that this part of Ezra's story was also highly unlikely. Basically, based on the crime scene combined with Alex's and Ezra's injuries, things were not looking good for Ezra, as investigators quickly believed that this was more than likely a premeditated murder with a poor attempt at covering it up. Following this interview, Ezra McCandless was charged with the first-degree premeditated homicide of Alex Woodworth. Ezra's trial began 18 months later, in October of 2019, and Ezra clearly thought that she was the star of the show. Instead of being the same traumatized and broken person that we witnessed throughout most of her police interactions, Ezra now appeared content, calloused, and in a twisted way, even appeared to be a bit proud. Ezra's ex-boyfriend Jason testified during Ezra's trial, and as he approached the bench, Ezra almost appeared a bit flustered by his extravagance. All professionalism went out the window, while she appeared to simply adore his presence, cracking smiles and making awkward, intimate eye contact as he answered his questions.
Is the person you know as Ezra McCandless in the courtroom today?
Yes.
Can you identify where she's located by just describing an item of clothing, please?
Pink blazer.
During Jason's testimony, Ezra continued to play her mind games. At one point, she removed her pink blazer, only to reveal a cardigan that Jason had purchased her during their relationship. Jason was dumbfounded, but finished up his questioning. In a shocking and questionable decision by the defense, Ezra is then called to the stand to testify.
Lady, you are literally on trial for murder, and you still trying to get with your ex, the military dude. He ain't gonna want nothing to do with you, child. You Lorna Bobbitt up in here. You literally try to take, you meshed up that man's genitals, Alex. And you did, you really think that out of all the women he could pick, he gonna pick you again? Right now, he's looking on the child like, listen, I'm lucky to be alive, okay? Because I could have been in that situation. And you think that you're gonna flirt with him and wear clothes that he purchased while you was in a relationship, trying to get him on your side? Like, what in the world? You got Lorna Bobbitt 2.0 going on over here. Jesus, I can't believe her.
During her testimony, she displayed absolutely no sign of remorse, guilt, or even grief for the loss of somebody that she once called her boyfriend. Instead, she continued her smiles and answered each question with her chin held high, almost appearing as if she was enjoying herself.
Good morning. Would you state your name and spell it for the record, please?
My name is Ezra McCandless. EMEZRAMCCANDLESS.
Okay, Ezra, I'm going to ask you to speak really clearly into the microphone because you're soft-spoken.
Yes.
Okay. So everybody can hear you. All right?
All right.
I guess the first question I'm going to ask you is, why Ezra McCandless? Why that name?
Why Ezra McCandless? Well, I have gone through a lot of changes in my life regarding identity and what really fits me. And I tried on a few names, but I found ultimately that Ezra fit perfectly for who I am.
What was your birth name?
My birth name was Monica J.
And did your name eventually become the last name Carlin?
Yes.
Okay. So why did you decide why you changed your last name?
I changed my last name, not to change my last name because of family's sake, but I changed it because of the name McCandless is from an individual named Christopher McCandless from Into the Wild, he's known for. And his love for nature, his philosophies for life, they were very in tune and aligned with who I am. So I honored him by taking his last name.
And what about, and Into the Wild, just everybody might not know what it is, just in a sentence, tell us.
It's a novel, it's a book he wrote.
I'm going to ask you about meeting Alex.
All right. Yes.
Why don't you tell us how you met Alex Woodworth?
I met Alex Woodworth one night when I noticed him. He was writing alone inside a bar called The Joint. He just seemed very focused, and I thought it was interesting that he was alone amongst all these people, so focused on his writing. Alex and I started slow. We held hands, we hugged, and we shared a few kisses, and then eventually we became partners. I encouraged him to explore himself and things he might want. And we started practicing and doing these new things that he wanted. I took the role of submissive. It turned into what at times could be considered a BDSM relationship.
Was there ever a time back in your relationship in January or February where Alex used a knife when having with you?
Yes, he had cut a pair of my pants.
Ezra's attorney continued down this path of questioning, allowing Ezra to paint a very graphic picture of exactly how she felt Alex's interests progressed. Although the questioning eventually shifted to a darker tone, Ezra's smiley and proud demeanor stayed intact. Ezra's story also slightly changed during her testimony. Now, instead of her grabbing the knife by the blade, she was actually able to free it from his hands with a different technique.
I decided then to knee him in the groin, and he drops the knife at that point. Instantly, I grabbed the knife.
Oh, she getting on my nerves. She getting on my nerves. Okay, first of all, number one, I want to point out, Smash ER, you correct. She had many different names, different personalities, right? And obviously she has a whole new personality because she looks quite different than from the original pictures when this situation occurred. And she do look quite gleeful to be on trial for murder, right? She looks like she have done the world justice and have gotten rid of this dude. And I find it quite alarming that you can see how manipulative she is, and she feels that she is in control of every relationship, or she literally strives to be in control of every relationship. And her way of controlling these guys is like, it's not like the abrupt, like, hey, you're going to do what I tell you to do. It's I'm going to soften you up and I'm going to get what I want from you. That approach, that secret type of controlling approach. Even when she's discussing about the BDSM, and like I said, now that she said the BDSM and they bringing up the knife situation, it puts together why she was okay with scarring herself, writing boy and stuff like that. You're into stuff like that. You're into that type of lifestyle. This lady, wow. This lady. And we ain't hear of her. She's literally like Laura Bobbitt.
I started stabbing him anywhere and everywhere I could.
What are you trying to do?
I just want to get away. I need to get out of the car. I need to get away as fast as I could.
So why do you keep stabbing him while you're still in the car?
Because he wouldn't let go. He wouldn't let me out. I was terrified.
Several medical experts, including one that specializes in trauma, as well as multiple crime scene analysts, all took the stand to testify regarding the story that the evidence told. To summarize, the prosecution wanted to show the jury that they believed that a heartbroken and revenge-fueled Ezra drove Alex into the middle of that farm property that evening. She then murdered him in cold blood and mutilated his body. She then spent approximately 2.5 hours staging the scene to look as if she was the one that was attacked, cutting her own clothes, covering herself in mud, and even faking several minor injuries. She then took the knife and threw it, took Alex's phone and smashed it, all as she headed on her way to Dawn Sippel's home. That's when her acting chops kicked in. And well, you know the rest. The defense had another story. The defense stood behind Ezra's claims of self-defense, stooping to a new low and destroying Alex's reputation as much as possible. They basically stated that an aggressive Alex that had gotten a taste for the BDSM lifestyle was ready to take what he wanted from Ezra regardless of whether or not she wanted it. He drove the two to the random location on the farm property, forced Ezra into the back seats, and then started to use the knife.
Yeah, I mean, I knew that that was what the prosecutor, not the prosecutors, the defense attorneys, they weren't going to have to use. The only way they're going to defend this woman is that everything that happened or transpired in that car was self-defense. There's nothing else that they can lead on. He didn't lure her. She lured him. It was already established from the beginning that you went around looking for him. You let your boyfriend know that you was, or the other friend that you was dealing with, you let him know that you was going to go see Alex and have the conversation with him, right? And that's why the police was there about that whole situation. You lured him into the vehicle to have a conversation. So for them, they can only use the self-defense. But even in that, it's not self-defense to try to cut a man's balls off, all right? It's not self-defense to mutilate a man's genitals. That's not self-defense. Like, lady, like, I mean, seriously, I understand some you know, you believe some dudes deserve that, but it's really not self-defense. You had ample time to get out that car and run away. You didn't stay there. They proved that you stayed literally, I think, of maybe an hour or 2 hours after stabbing this guy up. You knew exactly what you was doing. This is not self-defense here. So yeah, it was a piss poor job. And like I said, I hate when we get into the situation where we're now trying to destroy a dead man or a dead person's reputation. Like, Alex didn't do anything. He had consensual sex with this woman, and he didn't want to be bothered with this woman anymore. She moved on, found him a military dude. It is what it is. But because things wasn't going her way and she didn't have access to him anymore, she tried to put him on a rape charge. It didn't fly. They cut through all that nonsense, and you were angry that you couldn't get off on him on that. And you think that that's right for you to take his life and then also allow these people who don't know this man, but they're working for you, you're paying for them, to tarnish this man's reputation and death. I just don't like stuff like that. Like, I really think it's unnecessary, but it's the defense attorney's job. Their job is to win the case. They don't really care who is right or wrong and who's evil and who's not and who's guilty or not. They just want to win the case. So they're going to do their job. Let's go on.
Against her, cutting off her pants and her sweater. Ezra's amygdala kicked in full blast. Her fight-or-flight response chose to fight, and she then protected herself at all costs, blaming adrenaline for the extent of the damage that she caused to Alex. She then had an extreme trauma response to what she experienced, and blacked out the 2.5 hours following the incident. The next thing that she remembered was showing up at Dawn Sippel's doorstep. About 2 years following the death of Alex Woodworth, Ezra's trial came to a close, and the jury was sent to deliberation. And after only 3 hours of deliberating, they came back with a verdict. This footage is likely one of the most iconic pieces of content found in the true crime dossier, as the moment that the verdict is read, you can clearly see Ezra's astonished realization that her mind games and manipulations all led to this exact moment in time.
We, the jury, find the defendant, Ezra J. McCandless, guilty of first-degree intentional homicide as charged in the information. And the answer to the special verdict question is yes, use a dangerous weapon. And you may be seated. All right, ladies and gentlemen, is this your verdict? All right, I'm going to do what's called polling the jury, and I'm going to ask each of you if this is your verdict. And I'm going to ask you by your juror number.
They wasn't playing with her. You see that smile jump
Ezra
off her face?
McCandless was found guilty of the first-degree intentional homicide of Alex Woodworth, and on February 7th, 2020, she was sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 50 years.
Ms. McCandless, is there anything you'd like to say?
Hi. I would like to address Your Honor and the courts and Alex's family, but most of all, Alex's parents. I want to say how sorry I am that they have lost their son. But sorry doesn't cut it in my mind. That word is not enough and never will be enough for this loss. And I recognize that. I don't think I could ever find words that will be enough to express this, especially to them. The pain they feel is unimaginable. I want to express how sorry I am for this loss, because it is such a great loss. I recognize and completely acknowledge this pain, and I'm so sorry. I loved Alex very much, and I also feel a great loss. And I'm so sorry. And thank you for letting me say this. Thank you.
Ezra McCandless currently resides at the Teachita Correctional Institute in Wisconsin.
That one kind of annoyed me because I don't know. I don't believe in the whole I apologize after I do a vicious crime, after I do something to you and betray you. Like you're not sorry. Like stop acting like you're sorry for taking someone's loved ones away from them. You're not sorry. You're mad that you're doing the time. You're mad that you're in that spot, and you're mad as that you turning into somebody else's bitch. That's all you're mad about. You're mad that now you realize that the little control that you had in the little bubble in your mind doesn't transcend into other spaces when you're actually dealing with other people and stuff like that. You realize that you're not the big dog on campus anymore. And now you are apologetic because you get it, right? Like this woman had every intention to hurt this man, and she wanted to mutilate him. And the simple fact that you mutilated him, that showed that you hated him. But you want to sit up there and tell him that you love that man. You're going to literally sit up there and tell his family members that you loved him. But you really try to mutilate him so that he would even have an open casket. Like, girl, if you don't have several seats back, like, how dare you? I don't like it. I really don't like it. I really, really, really don't like it at all. But those are all that I have for you today. I hope that you enjoyed these cases. And shout out to everyone being very supportive and participating in the chat. I truly appreciate you. As always, like I said, everybody is welcome. But we do 2 things, or I'll say maybe 3 things on this channel. As long as we keep it cute, keep it cordial and respectful, I don't care. You can disagree with me. I don't care about disagreements. I don't care about critiques. I don't care about if I'm wrong and you challenge me. I want to learn, I want to grow, and I hope that you learn and grow with me too. But I do want to say thank you so much for rocking out with me as far as you have this evening. And I will be back Monday because, like I said, I'm on the road. I'm doing my thing, so I'm going to be offline for a bit. But I will be back on Monday for more cases. Definitely the cases that some of the people told me about it. So just make sure on your way out, just hit the like button for me. Comment later on if you have other cases that you would like me to review, and share out to anybody who likes these cases or who would like to be a part of a channel where we go over cases and it's an immersive conversation that we could discuss things. Some of you have known or seen these cases before, but have you ever actually had a whole community to talk to about these cases? I appreciate y'all. Y'all don't know how much I do. Y'all have a lovely, lovely, lovely day or evening wherever you are, and also a great, safe, and healthy weekend. I'll talk to you later, everyone. Peace out. Bye-bye.